Chapter 3994. When Fengjiu saw this, the corner of her mouth twitched, and she said, "Senior Marshal Brother I told them not to disturb you, but I didn't think." Hearing this, the men quickly came back to their senses. One of them said, "Senior Marshal Brother no, it's not yours. Don't misunderstand or—" Before he could finish, the man sitting in the bathtub angrily slapped the water, causing countless splashes. In the next moment, the splashes all turned into sharp ice blades, shooting towards the people outside the door with a whoosh. "You guys are courting death." The gloomy voice was filled with anger, and no one bothered to explain. They just quickly retreated to avoid the ice blade. However, they didn't expect that after they avoided the ice blade, the person sitting in the bathtub flew out with a towel wrapped around his lower body. The spirit power in his hands surged, and the water in the bathtub instantly turned into an angry dragon that attacked those people. Whoosh! Bang! Hiss! The sharp sound of air flowing through the air could be heard as the air fiercely collided with the man in the lead. Under the heavy impact, a loud bang could be heard. Immediately after, the male cultivator who was hit let out a blood-curdling scream and was sent flying. He heavily crashed into the courtyard. Pooh! He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face became pale. He struggled to stand up, but he was powerless. Aside from a man in the lead who was sent flying, the others were injured by the ice blades. For a moment, the smell of blood quietly spread through the courtyard. The man surnamed, he put on his outer robe and walked out. He gloomily looked at the people on the ground. His gaze fell on the man who spat out blood, and he said, "Liang Qing, I'm warning you. In the future, don't take half a step into my courtyard. Otherwise, I'll take care of you every time I see you." The man on the ground coughed twice and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He was helped up by the people beside him. He looked at the man surnamed and clenched his teeth. "I crossed the line today. I, Liang Qing, will apologize to Senior Marshal Brother Thank you for being lenient." With that, he gloomily looked at Fengjiu and stared at her like a venomous snake. Fengjiu was standing next to the door. When the ice blades flew out, she also dodged. As a result, the other party was heavily injured while she didn't have a single drop of blood on her body. The people supported each other as they left. Before they left, they glanced at Fengjiu as if to say, "Let's wait and see." Seeing the people leave, Fengjiu felt the atmosphere become oppressive. Moreover, there was a faint anger. She immediately apologetically and lowered her head. "Senior Marshal Brother it's all my fault. If it wasn't for me, I wouldn't have implicated you." The man surnamed who was about to throw a tantrum, saw that she admitted her mistake first. His gloomy expression relaxed, and he took a deep breath. "This has nothing to do with you. If we don't teach them a lesson, they will come back sooner or later. However, from the looks of it, they won't dare to come again." With that, he paused and looked at Fengjiu. "Go back and rest." "Yes, thank you, Senior Marshal Brother She hurriedly bowed and looked at the broken door. She asked, "Do we need to find someone to fix it?" Chapter 3995. "Yes," Fengjiu responded and turned to leave without saying anything else, heading back to her room. The moment she closed the door, the corners of her lips curled up and a smile appeared on her face. She went to the table and poured herself a cup of water. She thought to herself, "How can I find out about the Sarira and the Heart Sutra? I reckon that even the average disciple doesn't know about these things. If I want to get my hands on them, I can only start from those supremacies." However, her current identity was a little awkward. This identity was not conspicuous, and she was not outstanding in any aspect. Among so many disciples, it could be said that she was the one who was neglected. She did not even have the opportunity to get close to those so-called masters. In the end, what should she do to achieve her goal? When she thought of her son and daughter at home, she was anxious to return home. Therefore, she did not wish to waste too much time here. If she could end this quickly, she could finish her business and leave earlier. She planned to find an opportunity to ask around before making a decision. The next morning, when Fengjiu walked out of her room, she glanced at the room opposite her. She saw that the door had been fixed and there was no movement in the room of the man with the surname He. She retracted her gaze and walked out. Along the way, she saw a few cultivators who went back to their own rooms. They only glanced at her and did not greet her. After walking around the sect, he saw quite a few cases of people using their strength to bully others. Moreover, the sect seemed to tacitly approve of the bullying and duels. If one didn't go to the duel arena, they couldn't kill one another. If one went to the duel arena, no one would pursue the matter, even if one was killed. After walking around for a day, she had a certain understanding of the cruelty of this hidden sect. Seeing that the sky was gradually darkening, she was about to head back when she saw two women walking in front of her. They were chatting and laughing as they walked. Their laughter could be heard from afar. She narrowed her eyes and walked, thinking that it would be better to pass by quietly because one of the women was the woman named Zhu Ling. Unexpectedly, just as she passed by the two, Zhu Ling, who was holding her female companion's hand, stopped in her tracks. She turned around in surprise and called out with a smile, "Senior Brother Wan?" Fengjiu had no choice but to stop. She quickly turned around and glanced at Zhu Ling. She cupped her hands and bowed. "Junior Sister Zhu." When she saw this, Zhu Ling covered her red lips and smiled coquettishly. She looked at Fengjiu with her beautiful eyes and said, "So Senior Brother Wan still remembers me. I thought Senior Brother Wan didn't see me just now." Fengjiu smiled embarrassedly. "Junior Martial Sister Zhu? You must be joking. Junior Martial Sister Zhu is as beautiful as a fairy. I just don't dare to look directly at you, afraid that I'll blaspheme you. There wasn't a single good person here. Even the most delicate women were like snakes and scorpions. As a woman, she was very clear that even if she provoked a man, she couldn't provoke a woman. It must be known that when a woman got serious, even a man wouldn't be her opponent." Hearing those praises, Zhu Ling smiled until her delicate body trembled. Her charming eyes looked at Fengjiu with a seductive charm. She walked forward and said, "I've always thought that Senior Brother Wan wasn't good with words. I didn't expect you to make me burst with joy as soon as you open your mouth. That's because Junior Martial Sister Zhu is as beautiful as a fairy. I'm only speaking the truth," Fengjiu hurriedly said. When she saw Zhu Ling walk forward, she took a step back and kept her distance. Chapter 3996. There's a difference between men and women. Fengjiu said as he took another step back. Hearing this, Zhu Ling smiled tenderly. She found it interesting and walked forward step by step until she was in front of Fengjiu. She said, "Senior Wan, you just said that I'm as beautiful as a fairy, but now you're avoiding me like I'm a snake or a scorpion. You really hurt me." A woman, standing to the side, played with a strand of hair that fell in front of her chest. She looked at the scene in front of her with interest. Her beautiful eyes also sized up the man who kept retreating. However, although the other party's appearance could be considered handsome, his strength was not outstanding. Thus, she did not have any interest in him. Seeing that some people nearby were looking at them and whispering, Fengjiu smiled bitterly and said, "Junior Sister, I don't think I've offended you?" Zhu Ling was startled. She smiled tenderly and asked, "Senior Wan, what do you mean?" Fengjiu sighed softly and seemed to be a little worried. He said, "Junior Sister, not only are you beautiful, your talent is also outstanding. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been accepted as a true disciple in such a short period of time. A person like Junior Sister is like a fairy in my heart. I can only look up to you and not profane you. Moreover, my master's eldest disciple, Senior Brother Lin, has always been in love with Junior Sister. If he finds out about what happened today, I'm afraid that I won't have a good time in the future. Therefore, Junior Sister, please be magnanimous and let me go." Hearing this, Zhu Ling was startled. She then laughed tenderly and looked at Fengjiu with interest. She did not take another step forward. She just stood there and looked at Fengjiu with a smile. Finally, she said, "Senior Brother Wan is really an interesting person. I still have something to do today, so I won't chat with Senior Brother. If Senior Brother Wan meets Senior Brother Lin, tell him that I'll go find him in 2 days." With that, she smiled and turned to walk towards the woman. The woman held her hand and walked forward. She asked, "Linger, why did you chat with him for so long? Her appearance is the only thing that's pleasing to the eye. Nothing else is worth looking at. Senior Wan is also an interesting person. Since we've met, we should at least say hello. Zhu Ling replied with a smile. The two of them walked forward until they disappeared from Fengjiu's sight. Fengjiu retracted her gaze and didn't look at the people around her. Instead, she walked into the courtyard. However, the moment she entered the courtyard, she saw the man surnamed he sitting in the courtyard and drinking tea. He looked at her as if he was watching a good show. I heard that junior sister Zhu was looking for you. Fengjiu looked at him in surprise. No, I didn't. It's just that I bumped into her on my way back, and then junior marshal sister Zhu asked about senior marshal brother Lin. She wanted to complain a little. It had only been a short while, and the news had already spread to that woman looking for her. He played with the teacup and laughed. Hee, I heard that junior marshal sister Zhu is very intimate with you. Although junior marshal sister Zhu's figure is hot and beautiful, she's someone that senior marshal brother Lin has taken a fancy to. You better not have any thoughts that you shouldn't have. Otherwise, you'll suffer. I definitely wouldn't dare to have such thoughts, she hurriedly said. Moreover, not to mention that she was a woman, even if she was a man, she wouldn't have any thoughts about him. It's best that you don't dare. A voice came from behind. Fengjiu hurriedly turned around and respectfully called out, Senior Marshal Brother Lin. Chapter 3997. The man surnamed Lin walked in with his hands clasped behind his back. He glanced at Fengjiu, then walked forward and sat down at the table in the courtyard. Senior Lin, have some tea. The man surnamed, he poured a cup for him, then sat down beside him. Fengjiu sighed inwardly, but a smile appeared on her face. She walked forward and said, Senior Lin, I met junior sister Zhu when I came back. She told me to tell you that she'll be looking for you in 2 days. You really just bumped into her on the way? The man surnamed Lin stared at Fengjiu. Without waiting for Fengjiu to speak, his face darkened. Or did you deliberately go there to wait for her? Senior Lin, please don't misunderstand. It really was just a coincidence. Junior sister Lin only said a few words to me, then asked me to pass on the message. It really was just that, she said anxiously. Then, she continued, only Senior Lin is worthy of someone like Junior Sister Lin. I know that I'm not strong enough, so how could I have such thoughts? I hope Senior Lin doesn't misunderstand. In the end, she managed to dispel the man's suspicion and hostility. After sending him off, she let out a sigh of relief. The man surnamed, he saw this and chuckled. You're usually quiet, but I didn't expect you to be so eloquent when you talk. Hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes flashed. This was already the second person today who said something like this. It seemed that she had unknowingly brought her personality into this role. If this continued, they would probably start to suspect her. With today's warning, she had to be more careful in the days to come. In the next 2 days, she sorted out some of the connections of the man surnamed Ruan. She also heard a piece of news from his side. That night, the leaders of the sect will be discussing some matters in the side hall. When she heard this news, she decided to go and check it out first. That night, not long after she turned off the lights and rested, she changed into her night clothes and quietly left the courtyard, heading towards the higher levels of the sect. In the past 2 days, he had familiarized himself with the route, so he wasn't worried about getting lost. With her strength, no one could detect her ghost-like figure as she moved in the night. Moreover, she had concealed her aura and moved stealthily. In addition, there were not many people loitering around the sect at night. They had all returned to their own courtyards to rest and cultivate. Perhaps the people of this sect were too confident and felt that no one would be able to sneak in, so the security here was not very strict. This allowed Fengjiu to easily enter the side hall where the meeting was taking place. She quietly crouched on the roof of the side hall, peeking through the cracks of the roof to see the scene below. More than 10 men and women were sitting on the left and right sides of the hall. Some of them were old, and some looked very young. Of course, their real age was definitely not the same as the appearance they showed. She noticed that there were 3 beautiful women seated below. Their clothes were extremely revealing, and their beautiful eyes faintly carried a captivating charm. Moreover, their actions were slightly flirtatious. A gray-robed elder sat on the main seat. He held a dragon-headed walking stick in his hand. It looked like it was made of wood, but it also looked like it was carved out of something. Chapter 3998. The people sitting here were people who did not often appear in the sect. It could also be said that they were the true experts of the sect. Every one of them was much stronger than the venerable below. This was especially true for the old man sitting at the main seat. His strength had clearly reached the God King level. His reserved aura was filled with a dignified aura. This aura was different from the God King level experts like Azura King or even the owner of the auction house. The old man's aura was so powerful that it seemed like it had been accumulated over a long period of time. It was definitely not something an ordinary person could compare to. Even if they were all God Kings, the old man was probably one of the strongest. She could not help but frown when she saw the old man's aura. Since there were so many God Kings in this region, why was there no one who could become the ruler of this region? Putting aside the Azura King and the others who had already died, just the old man before her was definitely more than qualified to be the ruler of this region. However, if she had not come here, she would not have known that such a powerful God King was hidden in this hidden sect. Seeing that the people below had already begun chatting, she gathered her thoughts and listened carefully. The disciple who went out to gather information has already returned. The ghost Dr. Fungio, the Azure Dragon Sovereign, and the others have disappeared not far from us. I've been wondering whether they'll come for us in the past 2 days, a middle-aged man said with a grave expression. Why would they come for us? It's not like we've provoked them. A beautiful woman glanced at that person and smiled charmingly. However, I heard that the Azure Dragon Sovereign is a rare handsome man. It's said that he's like a god who has descended from the heavens. He's really extraordinary. I really want to see him. A tall, skinny man sitting opposite her sneered when he heard that. He said, "Don't even think about it. He's not someone you can dream about. Haven't you heard that the ghost Dr. Fungio is a publicly acknowledged beauty? With such a beauty by his side, do you think the Azure Dragon Sovereign would be interested in an old woman like you? No one will think you're mute if you don't speak." The woman's face darkened as she glared at that person. "What? Did I say anything wrong?" The man replied, "All right, I called you here to talk business, not to listen to your bickering." The old man, sitting on the main seat, frowned. He knocked the crutch in his hand on the ground, and the people sitting on his left and right became silent, not daring to be presumptuous. The old man glanced at everyone in the hall with his sharp and cold eyes and said, "I've received news from the Myriad Buddhist sect that the old bald donkey gave the ancient golden lotus to Fungio and asked Fungio to help them find the Saraira and Heart Sutra." As soon as these words were said, the atmosphere in the hall became tense. No one said anything. They only looked at each other, and their faces became more serious than before. "Will she find us here?" a man asked. Chapter 3999. Seeing his serious look, the crowd could not help but take it seriously. One of them asked, "Is she really that strong? Do we have to be afraid of her?" The old man held his walking stick with both hands and said in a deep voice, "I don't know if she is strong or not, but since she can kill Lord Azura and other divine kings, do you think she is easy to deal with? We are not weak. How do you know that we can't deal with her? She is just a woman. We haven't even fought with her yet. It's not appropriate for us to boost the morale of others and diminish our own," a middle-aged man said. Obviously, he did not think that he was inferior to a woman, even though they had not really fought. One of them listened to their conversation and kept his eyes closed. No one knew what he was thinking. After a long while, he looked at the old man in the main seat and asked, "Sect Master, where is the Saraira now? Is it safe?" Hearing this, the people who were originally talking stopped. Their gazes moved slightly. They also looked at the old man in the main seat, waiting for his answer. They only knew that their sect had obtained the Saraira and had only seen it on the day they got it. Until now, no one had seen it again. No one knew where the Saraira and the Heart Sutra were hidden. The old man squinted his eyes and stroked his beard. He said, "It is in a safe place. You don't have to worry about it." Seeing that he was unwilling to say more, the man who spoke again. "Sect Master, we are relieved that the relics are in our hands. However, as for the Heart Sutra, when does Sect Master plan to take it out for us to cultivate? It is said that the Heart Sutra of the Myriad Buddhist sect can improve one's strength. After practicing it, one can learn anything quickly. Sect Master should let us practice such a treasure. After all, the stronger we are, the stronger the sect will be. There is no hurry. Let's talk about it after we get rid of Fengjiu and the others. Now is not the best time to practice the Heart Sutra, the old man said slowly. The old man said slowly. He glanced at them and said, "Do your part well. As long as you contribute to the sect, I will not mistreat you." Since he had said so, the crowd did not say anything. They could only do as he ordered. Fengjiu, who was lying on the roof, heard everyone's words. She was a little surprised. She didn't expect that these people didn't know where the Saraira and the Heart Sutra were. It seemed that only the old man knew where these two things were. She did not think that he would keep such important things with him. If others knew it, there might be a breakthrough. However, it was the old man. It was a little troublesome. She gathered her thoughts and planned to go back and think of a way. However, as she moved, a tile under her feet, and it made a slight sound. However, it was this slight sound that attracted the attention of the people in the hall. It was the old man with the walking stick who reacted after hearing the slight movement. His half-squinted eyes instantly became as sharp as a sword, and the walking stick in his hand swung towards the direction where the sound came from. The others also reacted at that moment and shouted sternly, "Who's there?" Chapter 4000. The crutch was like a sharp sword as it shot up from below. With a whoosh, it broke through the roof of the great hall and headed straight for Fengjiu. Fengjiu had already dodged the attack while spinning. In addition, she had leaped into the air and put some distance between them. She had no intention of fighting them head-on. Hence, the moment the crutch flew towards her, she had already leaped into the air and dashed into the distance. When the people in the great hall rushed out and leaped onto the roof, they only saw a black figure disappear into the night. The speed was so fast that they were stunned. "Chase! We must catch this person." The old man had already arrived on the roof at some point in time. When he saw the black figure dashing away, he ordered the people around him to quickly give chase. Those people reacted and immediately chased in that direction. At the same time, they ordered people to guard the sect tightly so that there was no possibility of that person leaving. However, after a while, the people who had chased after the black figure returned with furrowed brows. When they arrived in front of the old man, they said, "That person ran away. We chased after him, but when we turned a corner, he was already gone." Hearing this, the old man's face darkened. A sinister look flashed across his eyes. He immediately shouted in an old but vigorous voice, "Guard that area tightly. Have people search immediately. He can't escape. He must still be in the sect." But looking at that figure, it should be a woman. A beautiful woman said. She frowned and pondered. Her body is light and her movements are nimble. It doesn't seem to be a man, but a woman. Hearing this, the people next to her were stunned. A woman? That can't be right. How could a woman be able to escape without a trace under our noses? You must be mistaken, right? It can't be wrong. That is indeed a woman. The woman said with certainty, "Even if a man's movements are nimble, he definitely can't be that light. It's definitely a woman." Hearing her say that it was a woman with such certainty, for a moment, everyone's faces froze. They all thought of one person at the same time. Fengjiu. That Fengjiu seemed to have disappeared. Could it be that he had already snuck into their sect? No. That shouldn't be possible. Their sect was very well hidden, and they had set up many formations and boundaries. Outsiders couldn't possibly enter. "Search," the old man said in a low voice. "This person is still in the sect. He can't escape. Take some men and search that area immediately." "Yes," everyone responded and immediately scattered, quickly gathering the disciples to search. Right now, they were in a tense period. They didn't know where this person had come from, and from the looks of it, this person wasn't weak. After a while, he jumped down and returned. After a while, on the other side, after Fengjiu had shaken off the person who had been following her, she wanted to go to her courtyard. However, she didn't expect that the sect was already on high alert. The disciples had already been summoned and were searching. She avoided those people and quickly returned to her room in the courtyard. She took off her night clothes and boots and kept them in her space. Then, she lay on the bed to rest. Chapter 4001. What's wrong? Did something happen? On the other side of the courtyard, the man with the surname, he walked out after hearing the knocking on the door. When he saw a group of people barging in with torches in their hands and murderous looks on their faces, he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. A spy has infiltrated the sect and is currently searching everywhere. Where are the people in your courtyard? A middle-aged man in the lead asked in a deep voice. His gaze turned and fell on Feng Jiu's room. Just as he was about to walk over, the closed door opened and a man with a slightly disheveled face, who was sleeping soundly, walked out with a coat draped over his shoulders. Senior Marshal Brother what happened? Feng Jiu had a sleepy look on his face, as if he had buried his head in his sleep, causing his hair to be a little messy. They say a spy has infiltrated the sect. Marshal Uncle Wang is currently leading people to search. The man with the surname, he was originally sleeping soundly and was holding back his anger when he was woken up. However, the person leading the group was a martial uncle, so he didn't dare to be impudent or dissatisfied. When Feng Jiu heard that a spy had infiltrated, he couldn't help but be shocked. He looked at them and exclaimed in a low voice, "What? A spy has infiltrated? How could a spy have infiltrated the sect? Have they caught him? Should we go and help?" The middle-aged man in the lead stared at Feng Jiu and sized him up before asking, "There are only 2 of you in this courtyard?" "Yes, Marshal Uncle Wang. It's just the 2 of us." The man with the surname, he replied, "Put on your clothes properly and follow us to search." He instructed the 2 of them and turned to walk out at the same time. "Yes, yes." The 2 of them hurriedly replied and returned to their rooms to quickly put on their clothes. They took out their swords and followed behind the middle-aged man to other places. Once they were outside, the man with the surname, he saw that almost the entire sect was searching. Because it was dark at night, everyone had a torch in their hands, illuminating the entire sect as bright as day. Marshal Uncle Wang, what kind of spy has infiltrated? Why is there such a large formation? The man with the surname, he asked curiously. It's a woman. The middle-aged man walking in front said. A woman? The man with the surname, he was even more surprised. What kind of woman is so powerful? How dare you sneak into our sect? The middle-aged man in front didn't answer him. He just said in a deep voice, pay more attention to the female disciples. See if there are any suspicious ones. The higher-ups have already issued orders. We must find this person. Hearing this, everyone immediately replied, yes. Feng Jiu followed behind, secretly rejoicing that she was currently disguised as a man, thus successfully changing the target. In addition, when she escaped, she deliberately went in another direction to mislead them, but she did not expect that under the cover of black clothes, there were still people who could see that she was a woman. That night, she followed them and searched everywhere, but she didn't find anything until dawn. This was natural. After all, the person they were looking for was among them. Other than herself, who else would be able to discover her? However, this night allowed her to know the strength and foundation of this hidden sect. This caused her to be even more vigilant in the future. However, that relic and heart sutra were with that old man. This point made it really difficult for her to make a move. Chapter 4002. The team that they had been following had searched for an entire night, but had not found anything. Just then, they met another team in front of them. The 2 leaders met and spoke for a while. Not long after, the leader said to them, all right, go back and rest. Someone could not help but ask, Uncle Master, have we caught the spy? Not yet. I think this spy has hidden herself very well. It won't be easy to find her. You can go back first. I'll instruct you about the next arrangements. The middle-aged man said and gestured for them to go back first. Seeing this, the crowd looked at each other before dispersing one after another. In the great hall, the old man sat on the main seat. The people on his left and right sat quietly. Compared to last night, they did not look too good today. Well, if a spy had escaped right under their noses, they would not look good. Furthermore, there were not just 1 or 2 of them. There were so many of them here, but they still could not catch her. So you're saying that you haven't found her? The old man asked and raised his eyelids to look at them. Yes, we've searched everywhere, but we couldn't find her. That person seemed to have disappeared in a thin air. We don't know where she went. One of them said, not daring to look directly into the old man's eyes. Useless. The old man's suppressed anger suddenly exploded. He slammed the walking stick in his hand heavily on the ground. A wave of pressure accompanied by an air current rushed out, instantly causing the faces of the people sitting in the hall to turn pale. Sect leader, please calm down. That person must still be here. We'll definitely find her. A middle-aged man hurriedly stepped forward and said, "We couldn't find her last night. Do you think that we'll be able to find her today?" The old man's voice was gloomy as he shouted. His sharp gaze swept across them. Finally, he said angrily, "If we don't find this person, it'll be like a thorn in our flesh. She'll cause no peace in our sect. What's her motive for hiding in our sect? Does she have any accomplices? Will she spread the news about our sect out? These are all hidden dangers. Just because you promised to find her doesn't mean that we'll definitely find her. What I want is to destroy this hidden danger." Yes, everyone could only agree. Seeing the old man leave with a flick of his sleeve, the pressure in the air dissipated with his departure. Only then did they let out a sigh of relief. They looked at each other and were silent for a while. Then one of them asked, "How can we find this person?" Sect Master is right. If we don't find them, we really don't know when this hidden danger will happen. I wonder how much of our conversation she overheard last night. A beautiful woman said thoughtfully, "Maybe he heard all of it, or maybe he only heard half of it." A middle-aged man said. He was also thinking in his heart, what method could he use to find that person? The other beautiful woman paused, looked at them, and asked, "Who do you think she is?" Hearing her question, one of them said, "Could it be that you think this person is that ghost Dr. Fengjiu?" Chapter 4003. Hearing her words, everyone fell silent. They had their suspicions, but they felt that it was impossible for someone to sneak into their sect so quickly. However, they still hadn't been able to find this person, so they couldn't help but suspect that this person might really be Fengjiu. If it really is her, then we'll lure her out. A middle-aged man said, his eyes shining. "You mean to use the Saraira or the Heart Sutra to lure her out?" A person next to him asked. Before the other person could speak, he continued, "However, those two items are in the sect master's hands. We don't have them. If we use a fake, forget about Fengjiu. Even we won't take the bait." The person who spoke said, "We definitely can't fool her with a fake. Since we want to lure her out, we naturally have to have the sect master take out the real thing. Even if we don't take out the Saraira, we have to take out the Heart Sutra. Otherwise, we can't keep dragging this out, right?" Everyone looked at each other. After a final discussion, they decided to talk to the sect master. On the other side, after Fengjiu returned to the side room in the courtyard, he took out a talisman from the space and transformed it into a puppet with this appearance. Then, he put on a black robe and covered his face. Only then did he jump out of the back window and head towards the main peak where the sect master resided. Unlike the others, the sect master lived in an immortal's cave. There was a formation set up around it, as well as a barrier. It could be said that without his permission, no one would be able to get close. Although it was broad daylight, she was proficient in concealing her aura. Coupled with her strange and exquisite movement techniques, unless she encountered the pillars of the sect, no one would be able to find her. Now that she was familiar with the path within the sect, she easily arrived at the main peak, where the sect master's cave was located. She looked at the two cultivators guarding outside, then picked up 2 stones and threw them in the other direction. "Who's there?" The two of them shouted and looked in that direction, but they found nothing. The two of them looked at each other, then walked back and returned to their original place to guard. What they didn't know was that in just a short while, Fengjiu had already flashed behind them and headed toward the array in front of the cave residence. When the two of them came back and saw that there was no movement in the surroundings, they didn't have much suspicion. After all, this was the sect leader's cave residence. Who would dare to casually come here? At this time, the old man in the cave residence was sitting cross-legged and practicing. He did not allow others to practice the Heart Sutra of the Myriad Buddha's sect, but he was already practicing it himself. However, the Heart Sutra was in Sanskrit. He was not proficient in Sanskrit, so he could only translate it bit by bit. So far, he had only translated the first level of the Heart Sutra, but it was enough for him to practice first. He, who was concentrating on practicing the Heart Sutra, did not know that a figure had quietly come to his cave residence. Fengjiu looked inside the cave residence from outside. She had a certain understanding of the cautious nature of the sect master of this reclusive sect. In this sect, in addition to people guarding outside his cave residence, there were also formations and barriers. She knew that the Saraira and the Heart Sutra must be hidden in this cave residence. The other party's strength was extremely strong, so she could not release her divine awareness to investigate. However, just as she was about to go inside to investigate, she heard voices coming from outside. Chapter 4004. The two cultivators standing guard outside dared not delay. After replying, one of them walked inside, his figure disappearing into the magic array. The other person remained in his original position. They were the sect master's trusted aides, and only they could enter the array formation behind them. However, even they did not have the qualifications to enter the cave. Even if they wanted to report, they could only do so outside the cave. The middle-aged man who came watched the cultivator go in and disappear. His eyes lit up. Even people like them didn't have the chance to explore this cave. They really didn't know what it was like inside. Although they were curious, no one dared to explore because the sect master had given a death order. Anyone who trespassed would die. Because of this, even if they were curious, they could only suppress their curiosity. After Fengjiu heard the sound from outside, his figure flashed, and he instantly disappeared into the void. Sect master, the head elder is here. He said he has something to discuss with the sect master. The cultivator spoke from outside the cave. His voice carried a trace of spirit power, which allowed his voice to pass through the cave's stone door and into the cave. The sect leader cultivated for a while, but because the person hiding in the sect had not been caught, he could not calm down. He tried a few times but still could not enter the state. Thus, he could only exhale and stand up. At this moment, he heard a voice coming from outside. When he heard the words outside, he frowned. Got it. Tell him to wait. After his voice came out, he didn't immediately go outside. Instead, he waited for the cultivator outside to respond before going outside. With a flick of his hand, the walking stick that was placed at the side fell into his hand. Using the walking stick, he walked outside step by step. When he arrived outside, he pressed the mechanism inside the stone door. The stone door slowly opened, and he walked out from inside. Seeing that the cultivators waiting outside had already left, he reached out and pressed the secret compartment on the wall outside. The stone door closed once more. Only then did he walk out of the barrier with one hand behind his back and the other holding his walking stick. He stepped into the array formation and arrived outside. What is it now? Didn't we just finish our discussion? The old man looked at the person in front of him impatiently. Why did he come to find him again when he hadn't caught the person? Sect leader. The middle-aged man bowed and said, Everyone would like to invite the sect master over again. We have an idea to lure out the person hiding in the dark, so... Hearing this, the old man's face was still gloomy, but he did not say anything. He only said, Let's go. It's best if this method can really solve the problem. The middle-aged man didn't dare to say more and followed behind him. After they left, Fengjiu came out of space and walked towards the stone door. Her mind was thinking about the secret compartment that the old man pressed on the wall. She searched for it for a while, but couldn't find it. She searched carefully again and finally opened the stone door slowly. Seeing the stone door open, she restrained her aura and walked in. However, just as she stepped on the ground, arrows shot out from the walls on her left and right. She immediately rushed forward, and her figure moved forward, avoiding the arrows that were shot from the left and right. After a few breaths, the arrows stopped, and the wall returned to normal, as if the mechanism had never appeared. Chapter 4005. There was no nervousness in her eyes when she encountered danger, only excitement and anticipation. As long as she got the item, she could go back, and it was obvious that the item she was looking for was inside. Her clear eyes were filled with joy, and her gaze swept past the small arrow holes that had instantly recovered on the wall. Under the circumstances where the arrows did not hit anyone, they all shot into the other party's arrow holes, and the small arrow holes on the wall were also restored to their original state. However, She stood there and did not move. Instead, she vigilantly stared at the ground and her surroundings. There was a mechanism in the passageway that led to the cave dwelling, so there must be another mechanism waiting inside. She had to take a look first, in case she left any traces that would alert the old man. After all, she did not know if she could find what she was looking for today. She looked around carefully and couldn't help pursing her lips into a smile. She turned around and walked forward. Some took big steps, some took small steps, some slightly to the left, and some lightly brushed past. After walking around and familiarizing herself with the surroundings, she went from the outer room to the inner room. When she entered, she realized that there was a completely different world inside the cave dwelling. There was a door on the left side of the cave dwelling, and behind that door was a cliff. When she saw the cliff outside the door, her eyes flashed with a glimmer of light. Why did this old man open a door here? This place was located at a high place, and once the door was opened, there was a cliff, so it was not possible to go out for a walk. The only reasonable thing was that it could be used for running. Perhaps this old man did not usually leave through the main door, but through the back door? She stretched her head slightly to look down the cliff, and could faintly hear the sound of water coming from below the cliff. Retracting her gaze, she turned her attention back to the cave dwelling, and after sweeping her gaze around, she began to search. Because she could not be found out that someone had entered, her movements were relatively small, and she tried her best not to mess up the furnishings and not leave any traces of her searching. However, after searching for 2 rounds, she did not find what she was looking for. Where did this old man hide it? She muttered softly. She crossed her arms and stared at the walls around her. She had searched and knocked on the walls, but she didn't find anything. Where could the thing be hidden in such a small place? It could not be on him, right? On the other side, in Fengjiu's courtyard. After Elder he came back. He lay down for a while and tossed and turned, but he was unable to fall asleep. He immediately jumped up and sat cross-legged on the bed for a while, thinking about what kind of person had infiltrated their sect. Since no one was talking, he got up and put on his clothes before going to the courtyard outside. Junior Brother Juan? Junior Brother Juan? Are you asleep? No one in Fengjiu's room responded, as if there was no one there. The man surnamed he called out for a while, but didn't hear a response. He couldn't help but walk over to the door of the room. He reached out and knocked on the door. Junior Juan? Junior Juan? I'm here. A weak voice came from the room. The man with the surname He, who was leaning against the door, was startled. He forcefully pushed the door open and walked in. When he came in, he saw a person lying behind the bed curtains. The person was wrapped up in a blanket, only revealing his head. Junior Juan, what happened to you? The man surnamed he asked as he stared at the person on the bed. I've been feeling unwell ever since I came back. Is something the matter, Senior Brother He? The person on the bed asked. Chapter 4006. It's fine if you're weaker than others, but I didn't expect your physique to be so weak as well. All right, if you're not feeling well, then go back to sleep. He said disdainfully. He did not even ask if they should send someone to take a look at her. Instead, he turned around and walked out. The puppet on the bed did not move. It only glanced at him once. After he left, it closed its eyes and went back to sleep. In the great hall, when the old man heard their so-called idea, his already dark expression turned even darker. He swept his cold gaze across the crowd and said, "This idea won't work. Use the Heart Sutra to lure that person out? Even if that person really is Fengjiu, I can't possibly use the real Heart Sutra as bait." Hearing this, the crowd sighed and looked at each other. One of them said, "But Sect Master, that person hasn't made a single move. If we don't do anything, are we just going to let her continue to lie in wait?" A bloodthirsty and cold murderous intent flashed across the old man's eyes. He said gloomily, "As long as she's still in the sect, she'll definitely make a move. I don't believe that she'll be able to endure this forever. Furthermore, if that person really is Fengjiu, then she can't possibly continue to lie in wait and not make a move." Hearing this, the crowd looked at him and asked, "What do you plan to do, Sect Master?" The old man paused for a moment, then said, "Doesn't that Fengjiu have a son and a daughter? If we can't find her, won't we make a move on the people around her?" The crowd was startled and looked at each other. Actually, it wasn't that they hadn't thought of this. However, with their cultivation, if they were to leave this place, they would be the overlords of a region. They really couldn't be bothered to make a move on a new disciple. That was why they didn't mention this idea. They didn't expect that the first person to say it would be their sect master. What? My idea isn't good? The old man's malicious gaze swept across the crowd. Sect master, we'll go back and make the arrangements. The crowd hurriedly stood up and said, Wait. The old man looked at them and said, If Fengjiu is still hiding here, then we have to be careful not to let her escape. The people we send out to carry out this mission must be carefully selected. Don't send out any random disciples. Those who go out must be at least venerable ones in the sect. Above the venerable realm? Everyone was stunned and exclaimed in a low voice. It should be known that in their sect master's office, venerables were allowed to accept disciples. In the sect, there were a total of 43 venerables. These people could be said to be the people who often walked around the sect master. Those who were sitting here were venerables and above. Usually, they wouldn't appear in the sect at all because they were the main figures in the sect. But now, the people who were sent out were venerables and above. Didn't this mean that perhaps some of them would also have to go out and carry out this mission? That's right. Don't send any disciples out. If you want to go, you have to be above the venerable realm. Pick 15 venerables, and 3 to 5 of you will go. The old man said in a deep voice. He looked at them and said, That Fengjiu's people are all extremely strong. If you go out, you might be able to fight against them. Hearing this, the crowd didn't say anything. They were a little hesitant to go. They all knew that Fengjiu's husband was the Azure Dragon Sovereign. Apart from that, there were also Fengjiu's strong subordinates. If they went, they might not be able to return. Chapter 4007. The old man glanced at them. Seeing that none of them spoke, he said, Then let's draw lots to decide. This is the fairest way. Pick 3 of you to lead the team, and you can pick the venerables below. He stood up with his walking stick and glanced at them. If there's nothing important, don't disturb me. With that, he walked out. When the crowd saw this, they could only do as he said. In the end, 3 people were selected by drawing lots. The 3 people who received the paper with the words go on its side inwardly. They looked at each other helplessly and could only leave to make arrangements. While Fengjiu was still searching around the cave, she heard movement outside. With a thought, she immediately entered the space. Since she couldn't find it, she could only hide in the space and see where the old man hid it. Otherwise, she didn't know when she would find any clues. The old man opened the stone door and walked in. As soon as he entered, he felt the wind in the immortal's cave. He stopped, and a dark light flashed in his cold eyes. He looked around, but he didn't find anything. His gaze calmly swept through the other places in the cave, including some subtle places. He frowned slightly and spoke with a voice that contained spirit force. What are you waiting for? Lu Ming asked with a frown. Did anyone come by just now? The 2 cultivators guarding outside were startled. They quickly turned around and bowed in the direction of the cave. Sect Master, no one came. Hearing this, the old man's frown didn't loosen. He continued to ask, After I left, was there any movement in the surroundings? No, the 2 cultivators said in unison. In the space, Fengjiu's eyes flickered as she listened to the sound outside. Since he left, there was naturally no movement in the surroundings outside. This was because long before he left, she was already lurking around the cave. However, she was so careful, but the old man was still able to sense that someone had come in. This keen sense really made her not dare to let down her guard. In the space, she could only release a tiny wisp of her divine sense to explore everything outside. Now, the old man was inside the cave, so the situation was different from when she was outside the cave. Therefore, she could only quietly withdraw that wisp of divine sense. After withdrawing that strand of divine sense, she was no longer aware of anything outside. She exhaled softly. Only then did she realize that she had been tense all this time. At this moment, she relaxed and felt that this matter was even more troublesome. With the old man's cultivation, if she kept releasing her divine sense to stare at him, she would definitely be discovered. However, if she didn't release her divine sense, she wouldn't know anything. What's more, she couldn't find those two things after searching for so long in the cave. She really didn't know where he hid them. In the cave, the old man opened the door and stood at the edge of the cliff. He looked at the sky outside with his hands behind his back. No one knew what he was thinking. After a while, he took a deep breath and walked down the cliff. Chapter 4008. In the space, Fengjiu's eyes moved slightly. She saw that after the old man sat down, he took out a book from his sleeve. Then, he took out another thick book and a piece of paper. He flipped through the book and translated the scriptures. She quietly withdrew her divine sense and suddenly said, "So the old man hid the things under the cliff?" She patted her head and was a little annoyed. "Why didn't I go down and look for it? Maybe both of them are under the cliff. Master, should we go out and snatch it?" Lao Bai came over and circled around her. Fengjiu glanced at it and said, "Rob, we haven't seen the Saraira yet. If we go out now, we will only alert the enemy. There is no benefit at all. What's more, the old man is very powerful." "Master, you are also very powerful. You don't have to be afraid of him. What's more, you have us," White said disapprovingly. Fengjiu shook her head and said, "My strength has not recovered yet. His strength is even stronger than that of Lord Azura and the others. From the momentum that he inadvertently exudes, we can know that this man is not easy to deal with." "Master, didn't you say that there is no Lord of heaven and earth in this area? Didn't you say that there are not many experts in this area? If there is an expert at the Divine King realm, why did they leave this area alone?" Tun Yun, who was lying on the side, asked. Hearing this, a thoughtful look appeared on Fengjiu's face. "Yes, it's really strange. When we first arrived, we didn't meet any experts, let alone the existence of a Divine King realm expert. However, when we came to this area, we accidentally met Lord Azura and the master behind the auction. Both of them are at the Divine King realm, but they're not at the peak." She paused and said, "It's one thing for people in the Myriad Buddhist sect to not fight for the Saraira, but the master of this hidden sect is obviously very powerful. Why is he willing to live in seclusion? Since he is living in seclusion, why does he try so hard to rob the Saraira and Heart Sutra of the Myriad Buddhist sect? What is he trying to do?" After a while, she once again released a strand of divine sense. Perhaps it was because the other party was focused on the translation, or perhaps he was confident that it was impossible for anyone to remain undetected right under his nose. Therefore, when Fengjiu released that strand of divine sense, the other party did not detect it. She stayed there until midnight. Only then did the old man who was focused on translating put away the item, open the door, and walked out. This made her even more certain that the Heart Sutra was hidden below. However, the other party did not go out after coming back. For 2 days in a row, he did not come out, which made her a little anxious. The puppet in her room could only last for 7 days. If she did not return after 7 days, it would be troublesome. In the space, she had found out the whereabouts of the Heart Sutra, but she had never seen the old man take out the Saraira. On the other side, in the courtyard, the man surnamed he walked out of the room and could not help but look at the room opposite. The door had been closed for several days. Was a man surnamed Ruan dead or still lying in bed? Thinking of this, he went forward and knocked on the door. "Junior brother Ruan, how are you? Have you recovered?" Chapter 4009. Senior fellow apprentice he. The man surnamed he was startled. After taking a closer look, it seemed that there was no big problem, so he waved his hand and said, "It's good that you're fine. Anyway, I've taken 3 elixirs from you. If anything happens to you, I'll have to take care of you." "Thank you, senior fellow apprentice he. I'm much better now, and I'm going to cultivate in seclusion." Hearing this, the man surnamed he glanced at him and said, Okay, I know. Go." Then he turned around and left. After he left, the door closed again. His eyes, which were still full of vigor, became dull. After locking the door, he condensed a bounded domain to protect the place with his hands. Then he walked back to the bed and sat down. In the space, Fengjiu was sitting cross-legged at this time. A mark disappeared between her hands, and a thin layer of sweat oozed out of her forehead. She exhaled softly and slowly opened her eyes. She only hoped that she could hold on for a few more days like this. On this day, the old man finally walked out of the cave after hearing the news from outside. Fengjiu didn't know what he was going to do, but after he left, she quickly came out of the space and went to the cliff behind, looking down. She didn't go down directly to the bottom of the cliff, but searched on the cliff wall. Finally, she found a small cave when she was 1/3 of the way down the cliff. The cave was not big. It was so small that even a child couldn't get in. It was only about the length of an arm. There were some weeds outside the cave, so it was difficult to find it if one didn't look carefully. To her surprise, there was only a wooden box in the small cave. When she opened it, there was only a yellowed book in it. This book was the Heart Sutra of the Myriad Buddhist sect. It's really here. She couldn't help but smile. She intended to take it and put it into the space. However, her hand holding the Heart Sutra paused. She thought that the old man would take out the Heart Sutra to translate in 2 or 3 days. In an instant, several thoughts flashed through her mind. A sly light flashed in her clear eyes. The next moment, she put the book into the space and then blocked the entrance of the cave. On the other side, the old man arrived at the main hall, and when he saw the solemn expressions on everyone's faces, he asked, "What happened now?" Everyone looked at him, paused for a moment, then said, "Sect Master, the people we sent out yesterday found the whereabouts of Fengjiu's sons. They sent back a message, but until today, there has been no news." Hearing this, the sect master's face instantly turned cold. As soon as he released his sinister aura, the atmosphere in the hall turned cold. No one dared to say a word. They just frowned and held their breaths. "Are you saying that they're all dead?" The old man's cold voice was bloodthirsty and ruthless. His sharp and cold eyes stared at them as he shouted in a deep voice, "Speak." As soon as the voice came out, the powerful pressure it contained also spread out. The stern shout shook their hearts, and cold sweat seeped out of their foreheads. They should all be dead. I received a jade message from one of them. At that time, he wanted to ask us for help, but before he could finish his sentence, a middle-aged man said, not daring to look at the sect master. Chapter 40:10. Not to mention the strength of the Venerable Ones. Even the strength of the 3 Venerable Ones who led the group was extremely strong amongst them. Yet they had suddenly vanished just like that. How could they not be shocked and uneasy? It was said that the ghost Dr. Fengjiu was extremely powerful, and there were no weak soldiers under her command. Every one of her subordinates was a powerful cultivator who could stand on their own. A few days ago, they had even sneered at her, thinking that she was just a woman. However, when it happened, their first reaction was shock and unease. The old man was silent. He held his walking stick with both hands and asked, "Has there been any movement in the sect these few days?" "No." One of them shook his head and said in confusion, "This is what we find strange. Logically speaking, that person shouldn't have left yet. However, there's been no movement at all recently. It's as if she's never appeared." Another person hesitated and said, "Could it be that this person isn't Fengjiu and has already left after we discovered her? Impossible. She must still be in there. We just don't know where she's hiding." The old man said with certainty, then said to them, "Don't let down the sect's guard. Search carefully. We must find her." He paused, and a sinister and calculating look flashed across his sharp eyes. He said, "As for how to lure her out, I already have an idea." Hearing this, the people in the hall looked at each other. Then, their gazes fell on the old man. They asked in confusion, "What idea?" "You just need to spread the news that we've caught Fengjiu's son and daughter. When that time comes, do you think she won't appear?" The old man said sinisterly, his eyes filled with calculation, "But we haven't caught her children. In the sect, even children are hard to find." Another person said, feeling that this idea was not very good, "If you don't have children, go out and find them. Bring 2 children back. Who knows, maybe it'll work." The old man stood up and walked forward with his walking stick. He instructed, "Do it as soon as possible." The people in the hall watched him leave and could not help but sigh softly. This isn't an easy job. If we don't do it well, we'll lose our lives. They're all dead. If we don't stay alert, Something bad will definitely happen. One of them said as he looked in the direction the sect leader had left. I only hope that this matter will be over soon. Then, the sect leader will take out the Heart Sutra for us to cultivate. We'll have our share of life-risking matters. Things like cultivating the Heart Sutra. I think it'll be very difficult for us to have a chance. Another man sneered and walked out with his hands clasped behind his back. After the old man returned to his cave abode, he walked around the cave abode for a while before sitting down to cultivate. He spent 2 days cultivating. After 2 days, he opened the door and looked down the cliff. In the next moment, he leaped down. When he arrived in front of the small hole, he opened the box. When he saw that the Heart Sutra was still there, a rare smile appeared on his face. He picked up the Heart Sutra and went up. After sitting down at the table, he took out something and began to translate and write. When Feng Jiu saw this scene in the space, she couldn't help but reveal a smile. Right now, she only needed to wait. She believed that she would see the results very soon. She only hoped that the results would not disappoint her. Chapter 40:11. Is it like this here? The old man murmured. He looked at the Sanskrit on the Heart Sutra and then looked at the translated words. After confirming it repeatedly, he wrote down the translated words. In the space, Feng Jiu smiled slightly. Perhaps Sanskrit needed to be specially learned and translated for them. But for her, who came from the 21st century and was knowledgeable, it was not difficult for her to understand Sanskrit. Therefore, she could easily change the words without leaving any trace. She withdrew that small wisp of divine awareness and sat down in the space. She took out the Heart Sutra beside her, and her eyes moved slightly. It was not that she wanted to learn it secretly, but she had memorized all the words in the fake Heart Sutra. After all, even if she wanted to make a fake one, she could not really replace all the contents. She could only mix up the contents. As for the content behind the Heart Sutra, she believed that the old man could not translate it in a short time. Now, the Heart Sutra was in her hand, but where would the Saraira be hidden? After staying here for so long, she only saw the old man take out the Heart Sutra, but she did not see him take out the Saraira. At present, she could not leave for a while, so she closed her eyes and began to practice in the space. Perhaps because she had read the Heart Sutra, the contents of the Heart Sutra naturally jumped into her mind when she was practicing, and her breathing also changed with the contents of the Heart Sutra. She frowned slightly and slowly opened her eyes. She had just read it once, but when she was practicing, her breath and cultivation method also followed the surging of her Heart Sutra. It seemed that there was no change, but only she knew that when she was practicing, the Heart Sutra of the myriad Buddhist sect seemed to naturally replace the Heart Sutra that she was practicing, which also made her practice speed increase rapidly. However, she felt that something was wrong. Her eyes fell on the Heart Sutra beside her. She frowned slightly, and a touch of deep thought flashed across her clear eyes. Normally, the Heart Sutra of the Buddhist sect should be a tranquil and peaceful existence, and it would not have the kind of overbearing reaction that overpowered other Heart Sutras. However, when she was practicing, even if she did not think about the Heart Sutra in her mind, the Heart Sutra would silently induce her to practice. Master, what's wrong? Seeing her like this, the ordinary swallow cloud came over to ask. Feng Jiu glanced at it and said, It's nothing. I just feel that there's something wrong with this Buddhist mantra. When Lao Bai heard her speak, he came over and looked at the Heart Sutra. He asked, What's wrong? Is it fake? As it said that, it seemed to have thought of something and asked curiously, Master, will the old man outside find out that the book you burned is fake? I won't. Feng Jiu smiled and said, Other than the content, everything else about that book is the same. He won't be able to tell. She picked up the Heart Sutra and casually flipped through it. In her mind, she was wondering why this Heart Sutra was so strange. Master, what is so strange about this Heart Sutra? Tun Yin asked. Feng Jiu lifted the heart and said thoughtfully, I don't know if it's my misconception, but this Buddhist Heart Sutra has a demonic nature. As long as you read this Heart Sutra, you will be influenced by it and will involuntarily practice its Heart Sutra. Chapter 40:12. This thing is strange. Is it really a Buddhist Heart Sutra? She softly muttered and put the Heart Sutra to the side. She felt that she shouldn't look at it too much and think about it too much. Otherwise, sooner or later, there would be problems. That's right. She felt that there was a problem with this Heart Sutra. The problem wasn't that this Heart Sutra was fake, but that there was a problem with this Heart Sutra itself. Another 2 days passed here. Fengjiu, who was in the space, didn't know what was happening outside. In these 2 days, she finally managed to ignore the disturbance of the Buddhist Heart Sutra and calmed her heart to cultivate. At the same time, she was also waiting for the old man to leave the cave. On this day, early in the morning, in a house in the city, Xianyuan Mose was reading a book in the courtyard. At the same time, he was looking at the pair of children who were dancing on the small bed. Every time his cold gaze fell on the 2 children, it would involuntarily turn gentle and doting. When he saw his daughter pulling his son's clenched fist and stuffing it into her mouth, he laughed softly and shook his head. He put down the book in his hand and went forward to carry his daughter out. Are you hungry?" As if afraid of scaring his daughter, he asked in a soft voice. "Ah." The little one opened her mouth and laughed without teeth. She went forward and leaned on Xianyuan Mose's chest, wanting to find something to eat. The corner of Xianyuan Mose's mouth slightly hooked up. Looking at his daughter, his eyes were full of ridicule. Look carefully. I'm daddy, not mommy." Hee. The little one giggled, and her saliva stained Xianyuan Mose's lapel. Looking at the saliva on his lapel, Xianyuan Mose's heart was very subtle. With his purity, he didn't seem to resist his daughter's saliva. No, it should be said that he didn't dislike it, because this was his son's saliva and not someone else's. "Qingsheng, go prepare some food." Xianyuan Mose looked at Bai Qingsheng, who was waiting at the side, and ordered. "Yes." Bai Qingsheng responded and walked out. Leng Hua and Du Fan walked in from outside. After glancing at Hui Lang, Ying Yi, and Leng Shuang, they bowed to Xianyuan Mose. "Yama Lord, how is it?" Xianyuan Mose asked as he held his daughter's hand. "I've investigated thoroughly. Those people are from that hidden sect. However, after this incident, they didn't send anyone else. I don't know what they're up to." Du Fan said as his gaze fell on Xianyuan Mose. Xianyuan Mose looked up at them and asked, "Did your master send you any news?" "No." The 2 shook their heads. After a pause, Leng Hua said, "Yama Lord, should we go and help our master? According to what we've heard in the past 2 days, the strength of the master of this hidden sect is unfathomable. I'm afraid that with our master's current strength, it'll be difficult for her to resist. If something really happens, she'll be alone outside without anyone to help her." Xianyuan Mose's gaze fell on his daughter in his arms, and his eyes flashed. It wasn't that he didn't want to help her, but he knew that she valued her own safety more than the safety of her 2 children. If he went and handed the children over to them, not to mention her, even he wouldn't be at ease. After remaining silent for a long time, he said, "This area is filled with all sorts of people, and there are many experts that are unknown to the world. Since that's the case, let's borrow their strength and wipe out this hidden sect." Chapter 40:13. Xianyuan Mose raised his eyes and looked ahead. His deep voice was filled with pressure as he slowly said, "In the name of the ghost, Dr. Fengjiu, I send out a hero's invitation and invite the experts of this region to come forward and help." Their hearts trembled as they recalled the scene of their master using the name of the phoenix Dr. Fengjiu to invite experts from all over the world to help during the great battle back then. However, the situation today could not be compared to that time. If they sent out a hero's invitation, wouldn't it be too? Thinking of this, Leng Hua and Du Fan looked at each other. Then, Du Fan opened his mouth and asked, "Yama Lord, compared to the battle back then, this hidden sect today can only be said to pale in comparison. It's not worth mentioning. In fact, with our strength, we could destroy this hidden sect on our own. If we use the name of the ghost Dr. Fengjiu to summon experts from all over the world, wouldn't we be thinking too highly of this hidden sect?" "No." After he placed his daughter back on the small bed, he stood with his hands behind his back and looked at them. "I'm not doing this just to destroy that hidden sect. I'm taking advantage of the situation and paving the way for Agio. He walked as he said, "This region is not under anyone's control yet. Since that's the case, if she accepts it, it will only be beneficial for her. And right now, there is such an opportunity." Hearing this, they finally understood. So this was his plan. However, if we send out a hero's invitation, the news will spread to those hidden sect experts. It will probably take a lot of time, and they won't be able to help Master at all. As Long Hua spoke, he looked at Xinyuan Mose and said, "There's one more thing. I'm afraid that these people will come with ill intentions and fish in troubled waters." Xinyuan Mose nodded and said, "So you have to arrange and keep an eye on these things. We need to use them when the time comes to wipe out the reclusive sect. You have to know that 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. We don't have many people with us, while the other side is only 1 sect. They may have the help of other sects that are on good terms with them. This is what we need to guard against. As for Agio, I'm still a little worried, even though Devouring Cloud and the others are with her. I sent the Fire Phoenix to check on the situation the day the people from the hidden sects sent people to deal with us." Hearing this, everyone was stunned. No wonder they hadn't seen the Fire Phoenix for the past 2 days. So it had gone to the hidden sect? That was good too. It could transform into a small bird and wouldn't attract attention. It was also strong. If it went to the sect and found its master, it would definitely be able to protect her. "That monk has been staying in the house all this while?" Xinyuan Mose asked as he looked at the 2 of them. "I've been here the whole time." "I didn't go out," Long Hua said. "You 2 go and arrange this matter. Also go and invite him over. Tell him that I want to play a few games of chess with him." Xinyuan Mose said and motioned for the 2 of them to leave. "Yes." The 2 of them answered and left. Bai Qingxiang brought the food over. Hui Lang quickly stepped forward and said with a smile, "Master, if you play chess with that monk, I'll help feed the little masters." Looking at the 2 little masters' white and tender, adorable appearance, he was extremely fond of them. However, these 2 little fellows did not like him very much. When they were carried by him, they would either cry or make a fuss. Otherwise, they would pee all over him. In fact, he was also very helpless. Xinyuan Mose glanced at him and said, "Go. After you're full, coax them to sleep." Chapter 40:14. Not long after, the monk walked in slowly. He put his palms together and bowed to Xinyuan Mose. "Greetings, benefactor." "Master, please take a seat." Xinyuan Mose gestured. He had already set up the chessboard. Lung Shuang served 2 cups of hot tea and then retreated to the side. The monk slowly walked forward and sat down. When he heard the 2 children's giggling, he looked sideways. He saw that the 2 chubby children were being fed in their arms. There was a smile on their delicate faces. There was only joy and carefree in their pure eyes, as well as curiosity about the world. Seeing this, he sighed softly in his heart. He shook his head secretly and withdrew his gaze. He murmured Ba in his heart. Xinyuan Mose's gaze fell on him. He saw that after he sat down, he looked at the 2 children. When a trace of pity flashed in his peaceful eyes, a deep light flashed in his eyes. His deep black eyes glanced at the pair of children and then fell on the monk. There was a trace of thoughtfulness on his face. The monk looked at the 2 children with a strange gaze. That feeling made him a little unhappy and a little uneasy. His and Aju's children were dragons and phoenixes among men from the moment they were born. From the moment they were born, their starting point was far higher than many people in the world. When they were born, they were blessed by experts from all over the world. In addition, the 2 children were also cute and had their own characteristics. But why was the monk looking at them with pity in his eyes? He retracted his gaze and hid the expression in his eyes. He picked up the tea beside him and took a sip. Then he asked casually, "Master, you've been living with us for a while now. What do you think of our son and daughter?" Hearing this, the others in the courtyard were a little confused. What about their little master? He was naturally a proud son of God, a dragon and phoenix among men. Why did he need to ask the monk? When the monk heard Xinyuan Mose's words, he only glanced at him. Then he put his palms together and murmured, Ba, the children of the emperor and Feng Xing are naturally blessed. Ordinary people can't compare to them. Xinyuan Mose played with the teacup and didn't look at him. He only said slowly, "Oh, is that so? But why do I see a trace of pity in the master's eyes when he looks at them?" As soon as he finished speaking, he looked up at the monk opposite him. The corners of his lips curled up slightly. His eyes were still cold. "Master, can you clear my doubts?" The monk paused and pursed his lips. He didn't say a word for a long time. When Lung Shuang, Gray Wolf, and the others heard this, they could not help but look at each other in surprise. They did not quite understand. What was going on? "What? Is it difficult to speak?" Xinyuan Mose asked, pressing him step by step. The monk felt the aura in the air become colder. He felt that the cold aura released from his body was very frightening. That kind of pressure spread out. Even he couldn't help but feel as if a huge rock was pressing on his chest, making it difficult for him to breathe. "Amipa, benefactor, it's not that I don't want to speak, but the secrets of heaven can't be revealed." He shook his head and sighed with a helpless expression. Chapter 40:15. The monk sighed softly and said, "Benefactor, this poor monk has already said that heaven's secrets cannot be revealed. Even if you say it, it's useless. What will come. If it's a blessing, it's not a disaster. If it's a disaster, it can't be avoided. Amipa." He stood up and said, "Sure, Xian's temperament is not stable. Let's play chess another day. This poor monk will return to the courtyard first." He bowed and left without waiting for him to speak. Seeing him leave, the people in the courtyard looked at each other. Because of his words, their mood became a little heavy. This monk only said half of it and didn't say half. It really made people feel uneasy. Huilang saw his master's ugly expression and said, "Master, you don't have to take this monk's words too seriously. The two little masters have master and madam's protection. They will definitely grow up safely. In this world, there is no one who can hurt them under master and madam's eyes." Xinyuan Mose didn't say anything. He just held the teacup in his hand and remained silent. Although he didn't want to believe it, he had to be careful when it came to the two children. But what was it that made that monk always put on an expression that said heaven's secrets couldn't be revealed? Suppressing the thoughts in his heart, he decided to take Feng Jiao and his son and daughter back after dealing with the matters here. As long as Feng Jiao became the master of this world and opened a path to immortality in this heaven realm, it would be able to lead to the world where they originally lived. This way, it would be much more convenient for them to travel back and forth in the future. At this time, Feng Jiao, who was in the sect space, didn't know what was happening outside. She was in the middle of cultivation. Today, after she restrained her spiritual aura, she slowly exhaled and opened her eyes. Ever since she was injured that year, her strength had regressed and increased again. Because she didn't use pills to increase her strength, every step of cultivation was more difficult than before. This was because her opponent this time was the sect master of the hidden sect. That old man's strength was somewhat unfathomable. She hoped that her strength could increase a little more, so that she would not be at a disadvantage when the time came. However, her recent cultivation had only allowed her strength to reach the peak of the immortal emperor realm. She was still unable to reach the heavenly god realm. If it was anyone else, perhaps she would not be too worried. However, her opponent was the old man. She was a little uncertain. Faintly, she felt that if the monk had said that she would face a bloody calamity on this trip, it should have happened in this sect. Even so, she had to get the Saraira, return it to the Myriad Buddha's sect, and put an end to this matter, even if she had to risk a bloody disaster. After suppressing her thoughts, she released a strand of her divine sense to check outside. She saw that the old man was still sitting cross-legged in the cave and cultivating. She sighed in her heart. If the old man didn't go out, it wouldn't be good for her to go out either. And that Saraira, where did he hide it? She had been keeping an eye on the cave for the past few days. It could be said that there were no hidden compartments in the cave residence. The Saraira could not be placed outside the cliff behind the stone door. Then where could it be? She calmed down and thought, if it was her, where would she hide the relic? Chapter 40:16. However, if she couldn't keep it on her body and couldn't hide it in the cave, then she could only keep it under her nose, a place that could make her feel at ease. As soon as this thought flashed through her mind, Her heart moved. Under her nose, a place that could make her feel at ease? There weren't many places like this, and the scope of her search had been reduced by a lot. Her gaze followed the strand of divine sense and looked outside. Her gaze fell on the old man who was cultivating. After sweeping a circle around him, she looked at a place 1 meter away from him. When her gaze swept past him, she saw that there were very ordinary things around her. There was no place to hide anything. Just as she was feeling puzzled, she suddenly saw the old man open his eyes. He seemed to have noticed something and glanced around. At that moment, she immediately stopped her divine sense and watched quietly without moving at all. The old man frowned and looked around. He pursed his lips and stood up. He brushed his robe and walked out. With a move of his hand, he used his spirit force to draw the walking stick from the side of the wall into his palm. Then he supported himself with the walking stick and walked out step by step. Looking at this scene, Fengjiu's eyes narrowed. The thing that she had been ignoring clearly leaped into her eyes at this moment. Yes, why didn't she think of the walking stick in the old man's hand? That was something that never left his hand, and that walking stick itself was an immortal tool. Could the relic be hidden in that walking stick? The more she thought about it, the more she felt that it was possible. Besides the walking stick that never left his hand, there seemed to be no other place that could make him feel more at ease to put away the relic. Sensing that the old man had gone outside, she waited for a while before releasing her divine sense. After detecting that he was no longer outside the cave, she walked out of the space in a flash. Her gaze swept around the cave, paused for a moment, and then quietly walked out. However, just as she walked out of the cave, a fierce wind blade formed into a stream of air and suddenly attacked her from the side. The monstrous, murderous aura contained in it was extremely terrifying. Almost at that moment, all the hair on her body stood up. Her body reacted instinctively and quickly retreated. At the same time, her palm condensed a stream of air and attacked it. Oh, bang! The fierce airflow made a whistling sound, and the powerful airflow pressure in the air was released at that moment. The collision of the two forces was like two thunderbolts striking each other, making a loud bang. The spiritual chi airflow visible to the naked eye was like water ripples in the air, spreading outwards. The fog in front of the cave was swept away by this stream of air. The two people outside were faintly seen being sent flying by the powerful stream of air. They let out miserable cries and fell to the ground for a long time without any movement. Ghost, Dr. Fengjiu's good. No wonder I've always felt that someone's his eyes. You've been hiding in my cave for a long time. You're really bold. His sinister voice was filled with murderous intent. The pressure of an expert had already been released the moment they exchanged blows. Now it filled the air, forming a powerful airflow that prevented people with lower strength from getting close at all. Chapter 4017. Your vigilance is not bad. I've been hiding for so long, yet you were still able to discover me. You were able to determine my identity with a single sentence. You're definitely not simple. As Fengjiu spoke, her gloomy gaze fell upon the old man. When she thought of the sudden attack, a cold light flashed across her eyes. If she had not dodged quickly, she would have been lying on the ground and waiting to be slaughtered. This old man was the only person in the entire hidden sect that she was wary of. She never thought that the two of them would meet under such circumstances. The other party's chi-concealing technique had been cultivated to the point of perfection. Even she had not been able to detect him hiding outside. He was truly not simple. The old man's eyes were gloomy as he stared coldly at Fengjiu, whose face was covered by a black cloth. That cave dwelling is only so big. It's impossible for anyone to hide inside. So, where did you come from? The corners of Fengjiu's lips curled up. With a move of her hand, a green sword appeared in her hand with a whoosh. The sharp sword, which was suffused with a green light, surged with spiritual energy, and the sword's sword chi whistled out. Her clear and cold voice sounded from her mouth. This you don't need to know. As soon as her voice fell, her body technique swept out like a ghost. Her extremely fast body technique made it impossible for anyone to see her moves clearly. All they could see was a green light sweeping out. In the blink of an eye, It transformed into several green lights that attacked the old man. Her aura was fierce and unstoppable. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The old man immediately used the walking stick in his hand to block the attacks. The spiritual energy in his palms surged, and several air blades shot towards Fengjiu like sharp swords. Every attack of his contained the might of a godly king. It could be said that once his powerful aura surged, it enveloped the entire mountain. As the two of them exchanged blows, the other people in the hidden sect noticed the commotion and rushed over almost immediately. However, before they could get close, they were stunned by the powerful aura that enveloped the main peak. This aura, we can't get close at all, a middle-aged man exclaimed. His face was filled with shock. Even if they wanted to see what was going on, they could not get close at all. This is the pressure of a God King expert, as well as an ancient pressure. An old man frowned and said. He looked at the scene on the main peak in the distance and sighed. Fengjiu is really here. The other person's expression changed slightly as he said, but she appeared before the sect leader even asked us to do what we were told to do. Wouldn't the two children who were already sent to the sect be of no use? A beautiful woman with a lock of hair said with a cold smile on her beautiful face. That's hard to say. The people next to her heard her words and couldn't help but look at her. They asked in confusion, "What's wrong? Do you have any good ideas?" The beautiful woman sneered as she watched the battle on the main peak. Because they were quite far away, they could only see the two streams of air fighting, but could not see the figures of the other party. Therefore, she said, "Let's wait for a while." Based on the sect leader's strength, she shouldn't have lost to Fengjiu. Moreover, didn't they say that her strength had fallen greatly? As he spoke, a loud rumbling sound spread out from the main peak, and then countless astral swords collided with the airflow, causing the surroundings of the main peak to be smashed into pieces, and trees fell one after another. Chapter 40:18. Two figures, one gray and one black, rose into the air from the airflow. Their attacks were so fast that even the disciples could not see their moves clearly. After the two exchanged more than a dozen moves, they were both knocked back by a heavy blow. The pressure and spirit force below also slowly dissipated. At this moment, the eyes of the entire sect fell on the black figure. There was curiosity and shock in their eyes. They did not expect that the one lurking in their sect was Ghost Dr. Fengjiu. They also did not expect that a woman could have the strength to fight with their sect master. However, her face was still covered with a black veil. No one could see her face, but the aura and pressure released from her body were extremely frightening. So, she is Ghost Dr. Fengjiu. It is said that she is the Lord of heaven and earth in other heaven realms. Her strength has already reached the Divine King realm, but because she was injured after the battle, her strength plummeted. However, seeing that she can fight with our sect master, maybe her strength has already recovered? Our sect is a hidden sect. Why would she lurk in our sect? A disciple asked the person beside him in confusion. An older practitioner lowered his voice and said, "Don't you know? There's a private rumor in the sect that our sect master has a sacrificial seed and a heart sutra. These two things were obtained from the myriad Buddhist sect. It is said that the strength of those who cultivate the heart sutra of the Buddhist sect will improve very quickly. And no matter what kind of cultivation, the speed of improvement will be several times faster than usual." But what does this have to do with Fengjiu? Another person asked in confusion. That's why you're not well informed. The speaker glanced at the person beside him and said, "I heard that Ghost Dr. Fengjiu has been to the myriad Buddhist sect and obtained the ancient golden lotus there. Because of this, the people of the myriad Buddhist sect asked Fengjiu to help them find the Saraira and the Heart Sutra. That's why she came here." At this point, the person who spoke lowered his voice and said, "This is the news that my superiors heard. The disciples of the sect only know that someone snuck into the sect a few days ago, but they don't know who it is. Only the superiors know that the person who snuck in is probably the Ghost Dr. Fengjiu. Fengjiu, give me back my crutch." Suddenly, a ruthless and angry roar came from the sky. Hearing the furious roar, everyone's heart trembled. They immediately raised their heads to look, only to discover that the dragon head walking stick in their sect leader's hand was actually in the hands of a black-clothed person. Their sect leader's expression changed drastically, and he fiercely pounced forward in an attempt to snatch the walking stick back. "Why did Fengjiu take our sect master's crutch?" a disciple asked in confusion. A disciple who had been watching the fight said, "I don't know, but it seems to be intentional. Just now, I saw that Fengjiu used his fatal killing move to force our sect master to use the crutch as a weapon. But who knew that Fengjiu did not avoid it? After taking the blow, he forcibly held our sect master's crutch in his hand. I don't know what he wants to do." Chapter 40:19. At this time, a young disciple at the side listened to their conversation for a while, but didn't understand. Thus, he asked, "Senior brother, who is this ghost Dr. Fengjiu? Where did she come from? How come I've never heard of her before?" When a man at the side heard this, he glanced at him and said, "I've never heard of this ghost Dr. Fengjiu before, but recently there have been rumors about her outside. Moreover, the upper echelons of the sect all know about her origins. It's said that she's the lord of heaven and earth from another heaven realm, and is very powerful." He paused, then continued, "Do you still remember the strange phenomenon that appeared in the sky? It's said that Fengjiu's child was born, and the sovereigns of various realms congratulated her across the sky. It was also from then on that some experts knew that ghost Dr. Fengjiu came to our side, and news about her quietly spread. Why are you still talking about this? Look, there's another fight over there." When a disciple at the side heard the two's words, he used his elbow to nudge the person beside him, indicating for them to look at the battle in the sky above the main peak. The two looked over and saw two figures fiercely fighting in the sky. Fengjiu took their sect master's dragon head walking stick and put it into her space. Their sect master was so anxious that his expression changed, and his attacks became somewhat crazy and irritable. Because of the change in his attacks, he almost used all of his strength to try and kill the other party. The black-clothed Fengjiu was quickly dodging, but because of the difference in strength, she couldn't block his crazy attacks. Pooh! A heavy blow. A fist landed heavily on Fengjiu's body, causing her to spit out a mouthful of blood and her body to retreat a few meters. "Hand over the walking stick," the old man said in a gloomy voice. His voice was filled with hostility and bloodthirsty, killing intent, and his powerful pressure and spiritual aura gradually darkened, becoming somewhat uncontrollable. Seeing the change in the other party's aura, Fengjiu raised her hand to wipe the blood from the corner of her mouth and couldn't hide her shock. If she hadn't been fighting with this old man all this while, she wouldn't have dared to believe that the difference between a person before and after could be so great. Although the other party's previous attacks were fierce and ferocious, they were not crazy or desperate. But now, this old man was going all out to kill her. This kind of reckless fighting style made her a little overwhelmed. Moreover, her current strength was not enough to support her for a long battle. If he couldn't win after a short battle, then he could only retreat. However, now that she had taken the risk of being seriously injured to snatch the crutch and put it into her space, the old man was also going all out, not giving her the slightest chance to escape. It was really hard to get off the tiger. "Give me back my crutches. Return it to me." The sinister voice contained a powerful pressure and attacked again. The airflow and pressure in the air surged along with his aura, covering the sky. The aura surging from his body gradually turned black. His eyes were blood red as if he was possessed, and Fengjiu was a little frightened. As far as she was concerned, this old man had gone mad. Chapter 40:20. Furthermore, what shocked her even more was that the other party's power and aura had suddenly soared. The surging aura from his body inexplicably caused the heart sutra that she had suppressed to appear in her mind. Even the aura in her body began to rapidly revolve because of the heart sutra that had suddenly appeared in her mind. Damn it, she cursed under her breath. Her expression was as cold as frost. She did not have time to think too much and could only use all her strength to fight. However, the old man's attacks were as fierce as a storm. The disparity in power caused her to retreat step by step and was at a disadvantage. Her body was also riddled with wounds from the other party's fierce attacks. Fresh blood soaked through her black robes. The attacks were like icy blades as they slashed across her body. Seeing that the situation was becoming increasingly disadvantageous for her, her eyes flashed, and a cold glint flashed across her eyes. With a flip of her hand, a pill appeared in her palm, and she quickly swallowed it. In the blink of an eye, the green lotus chi in her body circulated and healed her wounds. At the same time, she used her spiritual energy and aura to activate the pill that she had swallowed. In the next moment, the spiritual energy and aura on her body rose sharply. Under the impact of the powerful airflow, her black robes, along with the black cloth covering her face, were instantly torn apart and scattered in the air, revealing her peerless beauty and dazzling red robes. At that moment, it was as if the entire sky had become bright and dazzling. The people from the sect watched from afar and could not help but widen their eyes. Their eyes were filled with amazement and shock. Was this the true face of the legendary ghost, Dr. Fengjiu? It was so dazzling that no one could take their eyes off her. In the air, the red figure standing in the air exuded a powerful pressure and aura. It was the domineering aura of a ruler that towered over the heavens and earth. It was an intimidating aura that was naturally released from her body. Compared to her aura, her peerless beauty did not seem as outstanding. However, when they saw the figure standing in the air, the red robes fluttering in the airflow, and the scene of that peerless beauty like Lung Shuang, their hearts trembled. Their burning gazes only reflected the dazzling figure. The elders in the sect looked at the dazzling figure with indescribable complexity and disbelief in their hearts. It was rumored that the ghost Dr. Fengjiu was peerless and unparalleled in her generation, with experts from all over the world bowing down to her. They did not believe it at first. After all, in their eyes, she was just a beautiful woman. How could she compare to those true experts and men who lived in seclusion? However, after seeing him today, he knew that 100 rumors could not compare to seeing him in person. This ghost, Dr. Fengjiu, was truly worthy of being called a legend. Phew! Rumble! The powerful airflow formed a whirlpool, and a flame was released from Fengjiu's body. Following the swirling airflow, the flame turned into a terrifying attack towards their sovereign. For some reason, the aura that surged out from their sect master's body made them feel inexplicably demonic. The two powerful airflows rubbed against each other and collided fiercely in midair, creating a loud bang. Sparks flew along with the airflow and splashed down like dazzling fireworks in the sky that fell below the sect master. Chapter 4021. When the people who had been watching the battle saw the sect burning, they quickly reacted and shouted, "Put out the fire! Put out the fire!" For a moment, the people in the sect were in a mess. The old man ignored the people below and stared at Fengjiu, repeating over and over again, "Give it back to me! Give it back to me!" Fengjiu turned around and retreated, sneering. "Do you want your walking stick? Or do you want the relic hidden in the walking stick? However, this relic doesn't seem to be yours, right?" As soon as she finished speaking, the old man's eyes turned even redder, as if they were filled with blood, as if he had fallen into a half-demon state. "I'll kill you!" His figure swept out like lightning, and an overwhelming aura of death crashed towards Fengjiu like a mountain. "You can't kill me." As Fengjiu spoke, the corners of her lips curled up. As she dodged the old man's attack, she was about to retreat when she heard a voice containing spiritual aura penetrating the chaos in the sect and entering her ears. "Fengjiu, do you want her child to die?" The woman's voice was filled with viciousness and chilliness. As soon as she spoke, the cries of a baby reached her ears, causing her heart to tremble violently. For a moment, she was distracted, giving the crazed old man an opportunity to take advantage of. Bang! In that moment of distraction, she was sent flying from midair and crashed to the ground. The blood in her body surged violently, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Bang! As she spat out blood, Her body crashed heavily into a courtyard in the sect. The force was so great that it almost flattened the entire courtyard. Boom! With a loud bang, smoke and dust filled the air. The courtyard collapsed, and rocks rolled down on her body, causing her to be covered in bruises. She lay on the pile of rocks and hissed. She felt as if all the bones in her body had been broken, and the slightest movement would cause intense pain all over her body. The most serious injury was the internal injury. She knew that this injury had damaged her internal organs, and she could not move. Hand over your life. The old man in the air gathered a powerful chi in his palm and blasted it towards the pile of rocks below, intending to kill Fengjiu. However, right at this moment, the cry of a phoenix resounded from the sky. The sharp and shrill cry of the phoenix contained a powerful ancient pressure that pierced into everyone's ears, causing everyone in the sect to cover their ears and howl in pain. They looked up into the sky, only to see a huge fire phoenix covered in flames descending from the sky. It flapped its wings, raised its head, and let out a cry. It swooped down from the sky at extremely fast speed, using its wings to block their sect master's attack towards the pile of rocks. Bang! Master, let's go! The fire phoenix shouted anxiously. Because the old man's attack was too fierce, and because of the close distance, it didn't have time to save its master. It could only block the attack with its wings, and at the same time, use its claws to grab Fengjiu, who was lying under the rubble, and rescue him. Fire Phoenix, how are the children? Fengjiu, whose internal organs had been injured by the attack, asked about the children's safety the moment he saw the Fire Phoenix. Don't worry, Master. The two children are safe and sound at home. With the protection of the Yama Lord, nothing will happen to them, the Fire Phoenix said as it endured the injury on its wings and quickly flew away with Fengjiu. Chapter 4022. The old man shouted and chased after her. However, just as he was about to catch up, the Fire Phoenix suddenly turned around and opened its beak, spitting out a stream of flames towards the old man. The old man was forced to retreat, but when he chased after her again, he saw that the woman and the bird had already disappeared into the distance. They were so far away that it was as if they would disappear from his sight in the next moment. You can't escape. The old man's aura surged, and he shot out like an arrow, chasing after her. Sect leader! The elders saw this and couldn't help but shout. However, the figure had already disappeared into the distance in the blink of an eye. Seeing this, one of the middle-aged men frowned and said that Fengjiu said that the Saraira was in the sect leader's walking stick. How did she know? Another person said in surprise, we don't even know where the sect leader hid the Saraira. But from the looks of it, the Saraira was definitely in the walking stick. Otherwise, the sect leader wouldn't have been so anxious. Furthermore, the old man paused, as if he wanted to say something. Furthermore what? Someone beside him asked. The old man looked at them and said, didn't you notice that the sect leader seemed a little strange? We don't practice the demonic arts, but the sect leader's spiritual aura seemed to be somewhat demonic. Also, his eyes were bloodshot. This isn't normal. Hearing this, the few of them fell into deep thought and didn't say anything. How could they not notice it? The sect leader's strange behavior wasn't just a moment ago. Recently, his temperament had been irritable and his aura was always gloomy. They knew this, but didn't dare to say it out loud. After a long silence, one of them said, do you think the sect leader can take the Saraira back from Fengjiu? It's hard to say. The middle-aged man said, Fengjiu's strength really isn't at the level of a god king like the rumors say. It seems like her strength has fallen during the battle back then. If it weren't for her contracted beast saving her earlier, she probably would have died to the sect master's palm. Sigh. One of them sighed softly and shook his head. What's wrong? Why are you sighing? Several people asked, looking at the person who was sighing. That person looked at them and said, perhaps you don't know, but I've heard that this Fengjiu is the destined star of the Phoenix and is blessed with great fortune. Even if she dies 9 times out of 10, she'll still have a lifetime. Moreover, all those who go against her don't have a good ending. Today, she didn't die here, so I can't help but worry for the future of our sect. Hearing this, the group fell silent. They looked down at the fire burning in the sect. Seeing that the fire wasn't extinguished even with sand, their expressions became serious. This fire is constantly being extinguished. If this continues, I'm afraid the entire sect will be burned to a pile of ruins in the end. The middle-aged man glanced at it and said, "This fire is the natal heavenly fire. Other than Fengjiu himself, who can extinguish it, very few people can extinguish it. The only thing we can do now is to prevent the fire from spreading and completely isolate the burning area. Once everything is burned, the fire will naturally die out." Chapter 40:23. When the others saw this, they immediately joined in to help extinguish the fire. On the other side, the fire phoenix was escaping with Fengjiu. It dived down and flew far away. However, one of its wings was injured. It could fly for a short period of time, but if it flew for a long time, its speed would naturally slow down. "Let me down," Fengjiu said as she caught her breath. The green lotus chi in her body was healing her internal injuries. However, the green lotus chi was slightly weak and the speed of recovery was not as fast. "Master, he's still chasing after us. If we stop now, he'll definitely catch up," the fire phoenix said anxiously. It did not stop and continued to fly. Fengjiu panted. She felt that she could not muster any strength. She was being held by the fire phoenix in midair. Her arms and legs hung limply, allowing the wind to blow past her cheeks and hair. "Your wings are injured. If we continue to fly, he'll catch up. Go to the dense forest below. There are trees there to cover you, so you'll be less of a target," she said with some effort, trying to see if she could hide in the space. However, with a thought, her spiritual energy fluctuated and cold sweat seeped out from her forehead. "Master, you can't enter the space?" the fire phoenix asked. "After that attack, it's already good enough that I'm still alive." Fengjiu smiled bitterly. "Now, don't talk about entering the space. I can't even circulate my spiritual energy." The fire phoenix heard this and asked anxiously, "Then what do we do? If we can't hide in the space, he'll find us sooner or later, even if we go down." "Don't worry, I'll be fine. As long as I rest for a while, the green lotus chi in my body will automatically heal my injuries. As long as I can recover, I'll be able to hide in the space with you." She was panting slightly. As she spoke, her injuries were aggravated and her face became paler. Hearing this, the fire phoenix brought her down to the dense forest. When they reached the bottom, the fire phoenix said, "Master, you rest here. I'll lure him away." "Wait." Fengjiu pulled its leg and said, "Don't go. Let Devouring Cloud and the others go. Its wings were injured. If it went, it might not be able to escape." The fire phoenix paused for a moment, glanced at her injured wing, and said, "It's fine, Master. I'll go. Ask Devourer Cloud and Senior White to guard you. That person will only chase after me if I lure him away. Only then will I be able to buy more time for Master. Your injury won't do. That person is coming. There's no time." As the fire phoenix spoke, it pushed away Fengjiu's hand that was grabbing onto it. Then, it skimmed through the dense forest for a while, moving further away from Fengjiu before flying into the air to attract the attention of the sect leader. "Fire Phoenix," Fengjiu shouted. In her panic, she spat out a mouthful of blood. She leaned against the tree and panted, calling for Tun Yun, Lao Bai, and the others. "Master!" The three contracted beasts came out. Other than Tun Yun, the mother beast that had been cultivating all this time also came out. Lao Bai came to Fengjiu and paced around anxiously. "Master, how are you? Are you all right?" "Master!" The two Tun Yun beasts called out. Seeing how pale Fengjiu's face was, they were also very anxious. Chapter 40:24. Hearing this, the cloud-swallowing beasts looked at each other and looked at her worriedly. "But Master, Lao Bai, just stay here and guard me. You guys go. Don't fight with that person directly. Help the Fire Phoenix escape and leave immediately. Don't linger." Fengjiu instructed them to quickly help the Fire Phoenix out of danger. Seeing this, the cloud-swallowing beast nodded. "We understand, Master." As they spoke, they looked at Lao Bai and instructed, "Protect Master well. I know, you guys go quickly. Lao Bai replied, and stood guard beside Fengjiu. After they left, Fengjiu took a deep breath and said to Lao Bai, "Crouch down. I'll leave this place." If the old man found out that it was a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain, he would definitely come back to look for her. After all, that thing was with her. He wouldn't let her go and chase after the fire phoenix and the others. Right now, she could only leave this place quickly. "Okay," Lao Bai replied and crouched down, turning his head halfway to look at her. "Master, can you get up?" Fengjiu gritted her teeth and used all her strength to lie down on Lao Bai's back. Because of this movement, she felt a mouthful of blood flowing from her throat into her mouth. She swallowed it down forcefully. Go that way." She raised her hand and pointed in a different direction. Yes, seeing that she was pointing in a different direction, Lao Bai didn't question her and followed her instructions. On the other side, the fire phoenix led the old man in pursuit. When he saw the fire phoenix in front of them from afar, the old man behind them shouted angrily, "Fengjiu, you can't escape." As he shouted, a stream of air shot out from his hand and rushed forward. The fire phoenix didn't even turn her head. However, because she was speeding up, the injury on her wings became more serious and her speed gradually decreased. When she felt a murderous aura coming from behind her, the fire phoenix immediately tilted her body and avoided the attack. Roar! At this moment, a roar of a beast came from the forest below. When the phoenix heard the roar, it immediately dived down and headed for the forest below. When the old man saw it, he quickly chased after it. He flipped his palm and attacked again. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! "Over here!" The cloud-swallowing beast shouted and ran through the dense forest. The fire phoenix flashed and turned into a small bird and landed on the back of the cloud-swallowing beast, allowing it to run away. The old man descended from midair and saw the fire phoenix instantly shrink and landed on the back of the cloud-swallowing beast, while Fengjiu was nowhere to be found. The old man descended from the sky and saw the fire phoenixes, while the fire phoenix had fire beast. Fengjiu was nowhere was Fengjiu. "How dare you lie to me?" He roared angrily and waved his sleeve. A powerful stream of air shot out towards the direction in which the cloud-swallowing beast had fled. The powerful stream of air surged like waves and destroyed the trees in the dense forest one by one. The old man's murderous aura churned as he stared darkly at the direction in which the cloud-swallowing beast and the fire phoenix had fled. However, he didn't chase after them. Instead, he turned around to look for them. Unexpectedly, just as he stopped in his tracks and turned around, a ferocious cloud-swallowing beast pounced out from the dense forest and bit towards the old man's shoulder with its bloodthirsty and vicious fangs. Roar! Scram! A vicious aura burst out from the old man's body as he sent a palm strike at the female beast. The female beast's reaction was extremely fast as well. It leaped over a dozen meters away and quickly retreated into the dense forest, not wanting to continue the fight. Chapter 40:25. He rose into the air and stood in mid-air, scanning the dense forest. He released his powerful divine sense to search for Fengjiu's figure. However, standing in mid-air, he only saw the two cloud-swallowing divine beasts running in two different directions, but he did not see Fengjiu's figure. "You can't escape. You must still be here," the old man said in a gloomy voice. He wanted to follow the contracted beast to search for Fengjiu's figure, but the two contracted beasts also disappeared in front of his eyes. Even the aura of the sacred beast disappeared without a trace at that moment. On the other side, Fengjiu was being carried away by Lao Bai. Because she was on his back, Lao Bai did not dare to run too fast, in case she fell off the horse's back. However, he was worried that someone would chase after them, so he did not dare to slow down. It could be said that he wanted to be fast, but he could not be fast. However, he did not want to slow down, but he had to slow down. But even so, Feng 9, who was on the horse's back, still lost her balance and rolled off White's back as he galloped. "Master!" Lao Bai was shocked, but he also saw her rolling down the slope along the weeds. He was so scared that his figure flashed, and in an instant he turned into a white dragon and rushed down to catch her, so that she would not hit the tree stump at the bottom of the slope. "Master!" Lao Bai called out anxiously. He saw that her face was scratched by the weeds, and traces of blood seeped out. She had fainted. It was not like she had said before that she would recover after a while. "Master, master, wake up!" Lao Bai did not dare to push her, nor did he dare to call out too loudly. He looked at his unconscious master and then looked around. Other than the weeds that were half the height of a person, there were only trees. She was lying in a pile of weeds, and her figure was almost submerged. Why is it bleeding here?" Only then did Lao Bai notice that there was a wound on her abdomen that was bleeding. Her red clothes were red to begin with, but the color was slightly darker after being stained with blood. If one did not look carefully, one would not be able to see it. However, at her waist, the red clothes on her abdomen were much darker in color. Lao Bai leaned forward and sniffed. When the smell of blood entered his nose, he immediately panicked. It's really blood. Furthermore, he was injured to this extent. What should he do? What should we do? White said anxiously as he paced back and forth on the spot. Her master hadn't woken up yet, and she hadn't tried to treat such a wound before, so she was a little confused for a moment. "Right, medicine. We need to apply medicine to stop the bleeding," Lao Bai muttered. After he came to his senses, he opened the chinkuan bag on her waist and took out some medicine to stop the bleeding. "What about the wound?" Lao Bai asked worriedly. Seeing that she was still unconscious and the wound was still bleeding, he leaned forward and used his teeth to untie her belt. At the same time, he muttered, "Master, Lao Bai didn't want to untie your clothes. You're injured, and we need to stop the bleeding. We can't settle accounts with you later." Fengjiu, who was unconscious, was naturally unable to respond to him. Therefore, she did not know that Lao Bai had gasped when he saw the wound on her abdomen. He took a few steps back and looked at the scene in shock. Chapter 4026. He saw that her white inner clothes had been dyed red. What shocked him the most was that he could faintly see a sharp stone blade piercing into her abdomen. Blood was seeping out from there. When did you get hurt? Why didn't you say anything?" "Master? Master?" Lao Bai called out in a trembling voice, but he did not dare to call out too loudly for fear of attracting that person. He could only open the hemostatic bottle with his trembling teeth and sprinkle the medicine inside on her wound. "This won't do. She'll die if this goes on. That stone has to be removed, but I can't." He anxiously circled Fengjiu, unable to think of a way. "What should I do? What should I do?" He walked around anxiously. There was no one here, and his master was unconscious. What should he do? If this dragged on, even if she was not killed, she would definitely bleed to death. However, he could not bring her away now. He was afraid that pulling her would worsen her wound. He exhaled 2 breaths of air from his nostrils in annoyance. Finally, he thought for a while and went to Fengjiu's side, shouting, "Little tiger, come out. Come out quickly." In the space, the white tiger turned into a ray of light and flashed out. It rarely came out. When it saw Fengjiu unconscious and covered in blood, its eyes immediately shone with a fierce light. "How did Master get hurt like this? Don't talk about it. Let me tell you, Master's injury is very serious. There's a sharp stone blade piercing into her abdomen. You stay here and guard. I'll go and see if there's anyone nearby. It's more important to get that thing out of Master's wound first." As Lao Bai spoke, he looked around. In the next moment, a ray of light flashed and rolled around not far away. He brought back a pile of weeds to cover Fengjiu. He instructed the white tiger to guard its master, and then quickly scurried away. The little white tiger from back then had now grown into a majestic figure. It shrunk its body and guarded Fengjiu's side. It stared at everything around it vigilantly, waiting for its companions to return. This place was at the bottom of a hill in the dense forest and was covered by weeds. It was a good place to hide, and for the time being, this place was considered safe. Some distance away, a figure dressed in a manservant's clothes was squatting by the stream and washing her hands. After washing her hands, she took out a water bag from her space and filled it with water. She seemed to be in a good mood and sat down on a rock by the stream while humming a tune. She took out the herbs she picked from the space and cleaned them. Counting them one by one, she murmured, This should be enough for a long time. After putting away the items, she rested her chin on one hand and stared at the stream. She thought to herself, after walking for so many days, I wonder if he's searching the entire city again? Should he go back or not? Thinking of this, she frowned, and there was a struggle in her eyes. Just as she was about to stand up, suddenly, a gust of wind came from behind her. Then, something seemed to hit the back of her head. She only felt a pain in her head, and then her vision turned black, and she fainted. Lao Bai glanced at the unconscious human with some disdain. He knew at a glance that it was a woman, but she was dressed in a manservant's clothes. Her face was so dark that he couldn't see her face clearly. He didn't know who she was, but he had no other choice. Chapter 4027. Lao Bai tossed the person onto the ground and said, Master is injured, and there's something on the wound that needs to be removed. I'll capture this human and let her treat Master's wound. When it heard this, the white tiger still stared vigilantly at the unconscious human and asked, What if this human takes advantage of this opportunity to harm Master? Lao Bai glanced at the unconscious human and said, With the two of us here to keep an eye on her, she wouldn't dare to harm Master, even if she had 10 times the courage. As it spoke, it transformed from the white dragon into its horse form and used its hoof to push the unconscious human. Wake up! Hurry up and wake up! When she felt someone pushing her, the woman on the ground gradually regained consciousness and opened her eyes. However, she didn't expect to see a strange horse face pressed against her face as soon as she opened her eyes. She was so frightened that she instinctively wanted to scream. If you dared make a sound, I'll bite you to death. The white tiger's threatening voice resounded from the side, and the woman was so frightened that she instinctively covered her mouth with both hands and swallowed her scream. When she turned around and saw a majestic white tiger lying behind her and staring at her ferociously, she only felt cold sweat seeping out of her forehead, and her face instantly turned pale. A tiger, a ferocious beast. No, this was a divine beast. All right, don't scare her to death. If she's scared to death, I'll have to find another one. Lao Bai said from the side and used its hoof to push her. Hey, I need you to do something now. If you do it well, you can keep your little life. If you don't do it well, it'll tear you apart. A strange horse that could talk. The woman, who was Yi Fei Fei, stared at the two beasts in front of her with wide eyes. She didn't understand what was going on. She had just snuck out to gather herbs, as usual, but who knew that she would suddenly be knocked unconscious and brought here? Just as she was in a daze, the white tiger looked at Lao Bai and said, Why am I the one who will tear her apart? Lao Bai grinned and revealed a mouthful of white teeth. Because I'm a vegetarian. The white tiger helplessly rolled its eyes and didn't argue with Lao Bai about this. Instead, it looked at the human and fiercely threatened. Did you hear that? It's a vegetarian, but I'm not. Lao Bai lifted the weeds at the side, revealing the fungio underneath. However, because her wounds were not treated properly and she was unconscious, her face was as pale as a sheet of paper. The two bees' hearts tightened when they saw this. Cough. Senior White coughed lightly, looked at the woman, and said in a gentle tone, Miss, this is my mistress. She's injured, and there's something in her wound that hasn't been removed yet, and it's been bleeding. We're unable to clean her wound, so we'll have to trouble you. When Yi Fei Fei saw the fungio lying there, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Oh my God, how'd she get hurt like this? She couldn't care about anything else. When she saw that the other party was a woman and was injured to such an extent, she had no reason to leave her in the lurch. She immediately stepped forward and said, She's lost so much blood. If this continues, she'll definitely die. She checked the fungio's wound, and her face was full of solemnity. The thing in this wound is very deep. If we pull out, I'm afraid that the blood won't be stopped even if we stop it. At that time, Lao Bai and the white tiger looked at each other. Then Lao Bai asked, Can't we put some medicine on the wound to stop the bleeding after pulling it out? Chapter 4028. Yi Fei Fei looked at the unconscious person and felt that this person was really beautiful. Even though she was unconscious and her face was as pale as paper, she was still breathtakingly beautiful. She wanted to save her, but she was afraid that she was powerless. I have medicine. As long as you take out the thing in the wound and sprinkle this medicine on it, the blood will stop flowing. As White spoke, he opened his mouth and spat out a medicine bottle. Yi Fei Fei was stunned. She picked it up and opened it. There was hesitation in her eyes. Will this medicine really work? What if it can't stop the bleeding? What will happen if you don't take the thing out and let the wound keep bleeding? White asked. Hearing this, Yi Fei Fei gritted her teeth and said, Okay, then I'll help her clean the wound. If she delayed any longer, she would die even if she didn't die. She could only try everything she could. She took out a pair of scissors from the space and cut open the clothes around Fengjiu's wound. Seeing that the thing was stuck in the flesh and couldn't be pulled out directly by hand, she took out a pair of pliers. White and White Tiger watched nervously from the side. Although they let this person treat the wound, they couldn't hide their nervousness and worry, especially when they saw that the wound was pierced into the flesh after the clothes were cut open. Their hearts tightened, and they wished that they could bear the pain on behalf of their master. That bastard, sooner or later, will settle the score with him. White gnashed his teeth and said. At this time, Yi Fei Fei used the pliers to clamp the thing pierced into Fengjiu's waist and abdomen. She swallowed her saliva and said to the two bees beside her, I'll pull it out. Pull it out. As White spoke, his eyes were fixed on Fengjiu's wound. His body was also tense because of nervousness. Yi Fei Fei took a deep breath and gritted her teeth. She exerted force in her hand and pulled back. With a swoosh, that thing was pulled out by her hand. Following that, a column of blood spurted out and splashed all over her body. Medicine! Medicine! Quickly sprinkle the medicine. White Tiger hurriedly shouted, itching to go forward and help. Yi Fei Fei didn't dare to delay. He quickly poured all the medicine in the medicine bottle on the wound. He took a cloth from his side and covered her wound. He didn't dare to move. Yes. After a while, a light snort came from Fengjiu's mouth. When they heard her snort, the two beasts hurriedly rushed forward. Master, wake up. Don't sleep anymore. Fengjiu felt that her head was heavy, and her vision was pitch black. She tried her best to open her eyes, but her eyelids were very heavy, and she had no strength in her body. She could only hear Lao Bai and the White Tiger shouting anxiously in her ears. The pain in her abdomen gradually brought her back to her senses. Even though she did not open her eyes, she knew that she was in a bad situation. Being injured by the old man was one thing. What she didn't expect the most was that when she was shot down from midair, when the gravel fell on her body, there was a sharp and messy stone that pierced into her body. However, in that situation, she had no time to deal with it. Yi Fei Fei pressed on Fengjiu's wound. She felt that the blood seemed to have stopped. She couldn't help but look at her palm in surprise. She looked at the corner of the cloth that was stained red and the other corner that was not soaked in blood. Chapter 4029. Although she was not proficient in medicine, she had dabbled in it. However, she had never seen such a powerful hemostatic medicine. It was really amazing to be able to stop the bleeding from such a serious wound. Then hurry up and clean up the wound and bandage it. We can't stay here for long. We have to leave. Lao Bai said as he looked at his unconscious master and then at the woman. He felt that he could not let her go yet. She could only leave when they reached a safe place. Yi Fei Fei gently released the hand that was pressing the cloth to stop the bleeding. She took the cloth away and saw that the wound was no longer bleeding. However, there were still some small stones around the wound that had not been cleaned up. Thus, she cleaned up the small stones again, applied some medicine, and bandaged the wound. When she raised her head, she saw that the person who had been unconscious had already opened her eyes. When she looked into the other party's eyes, she felt that the other party's eyes were really beautiful. Master, you're awake. Lao Bai called out happily. Master, White Tiger also called out and leaned forward to lick her face. Thank you, Fengjiu said softly. His voice was still weak. You're welcome. After all, it's a human life. I can't just leave you to die, right? Moreover, I didn't do anything. I just removed the things from your wound. If it wasn't for the powerful hemostatic medicine that the strange horse gave, you probably wouldn't have woken up now, Yi Fei said as she helped Fengjiu deal with the other external injuries on his body. The corners of Fengjiu's mouth twitched slightly, and a faint smile appeared on his face. This woman's voice sounded familiar. It seemed to be the woman they met at the city gate when they entered the city that day. "Help me up and leave through the small path," Fengjiu said, indicating that they should leave now. "But you're so badly injured. If you move, I'm afraid that your wound will bleed again," Yi Fei said as she looked at him worriedly. "It's okay. My recovery ability is better," Fengjiu said slowly. After catching his breath, he looked at Yi Fei and said, "I'll have to trouble you, miss." Seeing this, Yi Fei went forward to help him up and asked, "What are you going to do now? You can't ride a horse like this." Then, without waiting for her reply, he added, Forget it. I'll use the aircraft to take you away." "No, if we fly in the air, we'll be discovered. If that happens, we won't be able to survive." Fengjiu refused and gestured for Lao Bai to lie down. After Lao Bai lay down, he turned around and said to Yi Fei, "Young lady, bring my master and sit on my back. Hold on to her and don't let her fall. I'll get you out of here." "Can you carry the two of us?" Yi Fei said with some hesitation. "Sure, no problem," Lao Bai said as he gestured for them to hurry up. Seeing this, Yi Fei had no choice but to help Fengjiu sit on the horse's back, and half supported her so that she could lean on his body to avoid pulling on her wound. "Sit tight, we're leaving." As Senior White spoke, he quickly led them away, and the white tiger glanced at the surroundings before quickly following them. After returning to the city, Hua Feng, Tan Yun, and the others looked around the courtyard they lived in. They asked anxiously, "Is Master back?" Chapter 40:30. Hearing Lung Hua's words, the fire phoenix straightened up. The two cloud-swallowing beasts immediately said, "We'll go back to find our master." Seeing this, Lung Hua frowned and looked at them, saying, "Since you're back, don't go out. Tell the Yama Lord what happened and see what the Yama Lord will do." Hearing this, the three contracted beasts looked at each other and then went to the main courtyard. Seeing this, Lung Hua couldn't help but sigh. He looked at the sky in the courtyard and murmured worriedly, "Master, where are you now? How are you? When will you be back?" When the three contracted beasts came to the main courtyard and explained the situation to Xinyuan Mose, they saw that he didn't speak, so they just stood there quietly and didn't dare to move. After a long while, they heard his voice. "So, you didn't go back to look for her after you lured that person away? So you don't even know where she is? You don't know if she's dead or alive. And when will she be back?" Xinyuan Mose's voice was low and steady, with a natural but powerful aura. But this calmness made their hearts tense up. They knew that the Yama Lord was angry. He was angry after hearing that their master was injured. But they didn't expect that after they lured that person away, it would take them a few days to come back here, but their master and White hadn't arrived yet. They didn't know how she was in the past few days. Xinyuan Mose paused for a while and said, "Is everyone here?" This question was obviously not directed at the three cloud-swallowing beasts. It was directed at Hui Lang, who was waiting at the side. Hearing this, Hui Lang stepped forward and said, "Master, Du Fan has been taking care of them. Listen to my orders. Pass down the order. Have Qi Kong and the others bring people to the secluded sect. This sovereign wants that sect to disappear from this world. Kill them on the spot. Don't leave a single one alive." His voice was cold and piercing. As soon as he spoke, Hui Lang immediately responded and left quickly. How's the arrangement I asked you to make?" Xinyuan Mose asked. He played with the teacup in one hand, but didn't drink half a sip of water. "The arrangements have been made." He came out from the shadows and said, "Bring Fire Phoenix and the others over." With a wave of his hand, he stood up. With one hand behind his back, he slowly clenched it into a fist. Cracking sounds could be heard as his knuckles tightened. At the same time, Fengjiu, Lao Bai, the white tiger, and a woman called Yi Fei were resting under a tree on a remote path far away from here. From that day until now, they had been walking on this path for several days. In order to avoid being killed by that person, Feng chose to take a detour around the path. Aside from the fact that the path was not flat, it was also quite far. They had to take a detour of more than half the distance to return to the city. This was also the reason why they were resting here. "Let me help you change your bandages," Yi Feifei said as she took out a strip of cloth from the space and looked at Feng Jiu. After Feng Jiu responded, she let her treat the wound. Compared with the previous 2 or 3 days, her complexion had eased a lot, and the spiritual power in her body had gradually recovered. Her internal injuries had also recovered a lot, but it was still impossible for her to be the same as before. Chapter 40:31. She watched as Yi Feifei helped her treat her wounds. Seeing her serious expression, the corners of her lips curled up slightly, revealing a smile. After Yi Feifei helped her change the dressing on her wounds, she raised her head to see her smiling. She couldn't help but ask in surprise, "What are you smiling about?" Although the two of them had walked together for a few days, neither of them had asked about the other's matters. She didn't ask why she was injured to this extent, who was chasing after her. She also didn't ask who she was. Why did she appear here? However, these 2 days, she had endured her injuries. She didn't say a word, even though she was out in the open. She couldn't help but admire her. "You had the chance to leave these 2 days. Why didn't you leave?" Feng Jiu asked as she leaned against the tree and looked at her. "Where can I go in this wilderness? Moreover, you won't do anything to me," Yi Feifei said as she walked to the side and sat down. She looked at her with her clear eyes and said, "However, your body's recovery ability is really good. You didn't take care of your injuries, and you actually recovered so quickly." Feng Jiu smiled faintly. That was natural. Although the green lotus chi in her body was small, it was constantly healing her body. Not only the wounds on her waist and abdomen, even the injuries on her body were gradually recovering. "Naturally, it's because my pills are not ordinary." She smiled and took out a few spirit fruit from her space and handed them to her. "Fill your stomach." Seeing her take out this kind of spirit fruit again, Yi Feifei's eyes couldn't help but move slightly as she said, "This kind of spirit fruit is very precious. Why do you always take it out for me to eat? It's just a few spirit fruits. What's so precious about it?" She smiled and shook her head, saying, "This kind of fruit, other than having a good taste, can also replenish spiritual energy and recover physical strength. We're currently on the run and can't start a fire in case we attract pursuers. Just take this fruit to fill your stomach." Hearing this, Yi Feifei didn't say anything else. She only took the spirit fruit and thanked her before eating it in small bites. Her family background was not bad, but it was impossible for her to eat this kind of spirit fruit for fun. Firstly, the spirit fruit was expensive, and secondly, even if she wanted to buy it, it might not be sold in the city. She leaned against the wall and rested. Because she was in good spirits, Feng Jiu asked with a smile, "Why did a girl like you run to such a faraway place? That place is a few days away from the nearest town, and you're still alone. Aren't you afraid that your family will be worried? Didn't you also run to such a faraway place? You even got injured all over." Yi Feifei glanced at her and said, "Although I'm alone, at least I won't be pursued." "We're different." Feng Jiu chuckled. "How is it different?" Yi Feifei looked at the 2 contract beasts on the side and curled his lips. "You have 2 more contract beasts than me. However, these 2 contract beasts are useless to you. In a critical moment, you still need me to treat your wounds. You're being disliked." Feng Jiu glanced at Lao Bai and White Tiger and chuckled. Senior White snorted twice. After glancing at Yi Feifei, he grinned, revealing a row of white teeth, and said, "Master, this little girl is useless. Why don't we let little Tiger eat her?" Chapter 40:32. Lao Bai snorted softly and ignored her. White Tiger, who was lying on the side, opened its mouth and stretched. Then it stood up and looked at Feng Jiu. "Master, let's continue our journey. It's safe to return home." In its opinion, even if its master's body had recovered a little, it was still not out of danger. If that person caught up with them, it would be troublesome. However, it would be different if they returned home. With the Yama Lord around, even if something happened, the Yama Lord would protect its master. Moreover, The Yama Lord was stronger than its master. Even if the old man chased them home, he would not be a match for the Yama Lord. Okay, let's go. If we can't return, our family will be worried. As soon as Fengjiu finished speaking, Yi Fei, who was sitting at the side, saw that she was about to stand up and quickly went forward to help her. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled and thanked her. He helped her stand up and sat on Lao Bai's back. Yi Fei flew on her own aircraft and followed them. Fengjiu sat on Lao Bai's back and touched the communication jade tablet in his sleeve. After recovering for 2 days, she only sent a message back to Xianyuan Mose that she was fine. She did not want him to worry about other things, so she did not say much. As for where she was, they would not be able to find her even if she told them. She only told them that she would return home safely. Little Tiger, you go back to the space first. We'll speed up and go back. Fengjiu said. He waved his sleeve and put White Tiger into the space. Although Xianyuan Mose didn't say anything at the time and only told her to be careful and pay attention to her safety, she knew that he would definitely do something. So, she thought that it would be better to hurry home and take a look to be at ease. Okay, Master, sit tight, Lao Bai said. With a flash of light, he turned from a horse into a white dragon and soared into the sky. Yi Fei, who was following them on her aircraft, could not help but be startled when she saw the horse turn into a dragon. She sped up and said, Why can it change? Isn't it from Malaysia? When Lao Bai heard this, he raised his head proudly and wagged his tail slightly. Fengjiu smiled and said, Old White is a mutated draconic horse. He can change between a dragon and a horse. I didn't expect it to be so powerful. Yi Fei's eyes lit up as he looked curiously at Lao Bai in his dragon form. His eyes were filled with envy. She didn't have a contract beast because most people could only have one contract beast, so they wanted to find a stronger one. But it wasn't easy to find a strong contract beast. Fengjiu, who was in a hurry to return to the city, did not know what was happening at the secluded sect under Xianyuan Mose's arrangement. She also did not know that the secluded sect, which had been hiding from the world for many years, was in danger of being exterminated a few days after she left 2 days later, when Fengjiu, Yi Fei, and Lao Bai were resting at the bottom of the slope. Lao Bai, who was originally lying down, quickly stood up and said to Fengjiu, Master, someone is coming. I'll go and see who it is. Then, without waiting for Fengjiu to speak, he walked down the slope in the direction of the sound. He stuck his head out from the bottom of the slope and looked up the path. When he saw it, he could not help but be startled. Then his eyes shone with surprise. Chapter 4033. When Du Fan and Lung Shuang heard the sound and looked in that direction, they saw Lao Bai rushing out. When they saw him, they looked at each other and smiled. Seeing Lao Bai meant that their master was here. Fortunately, they found him. Lao Bai, where's our master? How is she? Is she okay? Du Fan asked, and quickly walked to his side with Lung Shuang. Our master is injured. She's over there. It's good that you're here. I can rest assured now. Lao Bai said happily. When he saw their expressions change, he hurriedly said, Don't worry. Our master's injury is much better now. Come with me. Our master is over there. As he spoke, Lao Bai led them to where Fengjiu was. Fengjiu, who was sitting and resting, faintly heard their conversation. She did not move. She just sat and rested, waiting for them to come over. When Yi Fei saw this, she said, Your people are here. Then I'll go first. Just as she was about to leave, Fengjiu grabbed her hand. What's the hurry? Didn't you say you were going back to the city? We're going back to the city too. Fengjiu smiled and looked up. She saw Du Fan and Lung Shuang following Lao Bai and walking quickly towards them. Let me introduce you to these two people. When she saw Du Fan, the smile on Fengjiu's face deepened. Although she did not lift the curtain to see when they entered the city, she more or less knew what happened on that day. When she saw Du Fan and Lung Shuang, she could not help but be curious. What happened next? When Yi Fei saw Du Fan and Lung Shuang approaching, she had half covered her face. She did not expect to meet these two people, and she did not expect that the woman who had taken care of her for several days would be their master. Thinking of the day when she threw herself on the man and said those words when she entered the city, Her face couldn't help but feel a little hot. For the past few days, she had not met anyone because she had been walking on the mountain path. She had also washed away the red birthmark on her face with medicine, but she did not think that the other party would not recognize her. It's over, it's over. What should I do? She lowered her head to avoid him, feeling extremely anxious. What's over? Fengjiu asked with a smile. Master. Du Fan and Lung Shuang walked forward and saw a woman curled up beside Fengjiu with her head half buried, and their master holding her hand. Seeing this, Du Fan frowned and immediately went forward to lift the woman up. Where did you come from? He lifted her up, but was interrupted by Fengjiu before he could finish his sentence. Du Fan, don't hurt her. This. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Yi Feifei gasped and did not bother to cover her face as she cried out in pain. Du Fan looked and his brows were still furrowed. He stared at Yi Feifei's face and said, Why do I feel that this person is somewhat familiar? Fengjiu smiled and said, I was injured and she was the one who helped me treat my wounds. She was also the one who took care of me on the way here. Lung Shuang walked forward to Fengjiu's side. Seeing that she seemed to be in good spirits, but her face was still a little pale, he could not help but ask worriedly, Master, are you seriously injured? Where's the wound? Is it better? The wound on my waist was quite serious, but it's much better now. The internal injuries are also gradually recovering. There's no need to worry. Fengjiu said and then asked, Is everything okay at home?